Nora, now responsible for many household chores, was often scolded for the smallest mistakes. Nkechi's tone grew colder, and the warmth that Nora once felt began to fade. One afternoon, as Nora struggled to carry a heavy basket of yams, Nkechi snapped at her, "Hurry up, you are so slow. Why can't you be more like Amanda?" Ikenna and Adobe were deeply in love. They had a beautiful wedding in their village, surrounded by friends and family. The village of Umudim burst with excitement on their wedding day. The sun shone brightly, casting a golden hue on the festivities. Traditional music filled the air, and the aroma of delicious local dishes wafted through the crowd. Adobe looked stunning in her traditional attire, her smile radiating pure joy. Ikenna couldn't take his eyes off her as they exchanged vows. Their love was evident to all who watched. They danced, laughed, and celebrated their union late into the night, surrounded by the warmth and support of their loved ones. Their happiness grew, and when Adobe became pregnant a few months after their wedding, Ikenna was overjoyed. He would place his hand on Adobe's belly, talking to their unborn child. "I can't wait to meet you, little one," he would whisper, his voice filled with anticipation. Adobe glowed in her pregnancy. The expectancy of motherhood made her more happy. She and Ikenna spent hours planning for the baby's arrival. They decorated a small room in their modest home, painting the walls with cheerful colors and filling it with handmade toys and tiny clothes. The night Adobe went into labor, a severe storm raged outside. The midwife Nneka did her best, but complications arose. Adobe was in immense pain, and despite their prayers and efforts, she lost too much blood. As dawn broke, Adobe's cries ceased, replaced by the wails of a newborn baby girl. Ikenna held Adobe's lifeless hand, tears streaming down his face. He was heartbroken, but he also felt a strange mixture of sorrow and joy. In his arms lay their daughter, Nora, who everyone called Nora. The days that followed were filled with a deep sense of loss. Ikenna was shattered, struggling to cope with the void Adobe's death left in her heart. He often found himself staring at the crib, wishing Adobe were there to share the joy and challenges of parenthood. Yet, when he looked at Nora's innocent face, he found a reason to keep going. Ikenna poured his love into raising Nora. He was determined to give her the best life possible, despite his grief. He learned how to change diapers, feed her, and soothe her cries. Neighbors and friends often marveled at how tenderly he cared for Nora. "You are doing a wonderful job, Ikenna," they would say. In the evenings, after putting Nora to bed, Ikenna would sit by the window, gazing at the stars. He would talk to Adobe, sharing the day's events and his dreams for their daughter. "I promise, Adobe, I promise to take good care of her, my love," he would whisper into the night. Despite the heartaches, he found strength in his love for his daughter. She became his beacon of hope, a living reminder of the love he and Adobe shared. He was determined to honor Adobe's memory by raising Nora with all the love and care he could muster, even in the face of his own overwhelming grief. 2 years after the death of Adobe, Ikenna met Nkechi. Their meeting was unexpected but life-changing. Ikenna was in the market buying vegetables when he saw Nkechi. She was helping an elderly woman carry a heavy basket. Her kindness caught his attention. She had a warm smile and a gentle manner that immediately made an impression on him. Ikenna struck up a conversation with Nkechi, and they discovered they had many common interests. They both loved the quiet life of the village, the sound of children playing, and the peace that came from being surrounded by nature. Over time, their friendship deepened and they began to spend more time together. "Nkechi, you have a very kind heart," Ikenna would say. "I feel at peace when I am with you." Nkechi blushed, her smile widening. Thank you, Ikenna. I feel the same way about you. It wasn't long before Ikenna realized he had fallen in love again. He felt guilty at first, thinking he was betraying Adobe's memory. But he also knew that life had to go on. He wanted Nora to have another mother, at least a mother figure in her life, someone who would love and care for her. Ikenna proposed to Nkechi on a quiet evening by the riverside. The sun was setting, casting a beautiful glow over the water. Nkechi, will you marry me? He asked, holding her hands. Nkechi's eyes filled with tears of joy. Yes, Ikenna, I would marry you. Their wedding was a simple affair held in the same village where Ikenna and Adobe had married. Their friends and family gathered once more to celebrate the new beginning. Nkechi wore a modest and beautiful dress, and Ikenna couldn't help but feel grateful for the second chance at happiness. Nkechi took care of Nora, treating her like her own child. She would sing lullabies to her at night and made sure she had everything she needed. Nora, still too young to remember her birth mother, quickly grew attached to Nkechi. Shortly after their marriage, Nkechi gave birth to a beautiful baby girl whom they named Amanda. The birth of Amanda brought even more joy to their home. Nora was thrilled to have a baby sister, and she loved helping Nkechi with the baby. I love you, Amanda, Nora would whisper to her baby sister, kissing her forehead. Their family seemed happy and complete. Ikenna often found himself smiling as he watched Nkechi and the girls playing together. His heart felt lighter than it had in years. He was grateful for Nkechi's presence and the love she brought to their lives. But life is never without its challenges. As Amanda grew, Ikenna noticed subtle changes in Nkechi's behavior. At first, they were small things. A stern look, a harsh word directed at Nora. He brushed it off, thinking it was just the stress of raising two young children. One evening, Ikenna sat with Nkechi after putting the girls to bed. Is everything alright, Nkechi? You seem different lately. Nkechi sighed. It's nothing, Ikenna. I'm just tired, that's all. Ikenna wanted to believe her, but a nagging feeling in his heart told him something was off. Despite these worries, he remained hopeful, trusting that their love and the family they were building together would see them through any hardships. The family continued to navigate their new life, with Ikenna holding on to the hope that their happiness would remain intact. 7 years later, life took another unexpected turn. Ikenna suddenly fell ill. What began as a mild cough quickly worsened. Despite the visits to the local clinic and traditional healers, Ikenna's health continued to decline. Nkechi was beside him with worry, doing everything she could to care for him, but nothing seemed to help. One night, as Ikenna lay in bed, he called for Nkechi. Nkechi, I need to talk to you, he said weakly. She sat by his side, holding his hands. Promise me you'll take care of Nora and Amanda. Nkechi nodded, tears streaming down her face. I promise, Ikenna, I will take care of them as my own. Days turned into a few more weeks, and Ikenna's condition only worsened. The whole village prayed for his recovery, but it seemed that fate had other plans. One quiet evening, with Nkechi, Nora and Amanda by his side, Ikenna took his very last breath. Nkechi was devastated. The village mourned the loss of a good man, and a large crowd attended Ikenna's funeral. Nora, now 9 years old, clung to Nkechi, not fully understanding the permanence of death, but sensing the gravity of their loss. Amanda, just a toddler, was too young to comprehend what had happened. In the days following Ikenna's death, Nkechi discovered that he had left everything to her. This included their modest home, a small plot of farmland, and a few savings. Ikenna had trusted Nkechi completely, believing she would take care of the family in his absence. At first, Nkechi rose to the challenge. She managed the household and continued to earn respect in the community. Her resilience and strength were admired by many. "Nkechi, you're a strong woman," the villagers would say. Ikenna would be proud. Nkechi threw herself into work, determined to maintain the life Ikenna had built for them. She took over the farming, selling produce in the market and ensuring the children were well cared for. Life slowly found a new rhythm, but something within Nkechi began to change. Over time, subtle differences in her behavior became more pronounced. She started to treat Nora differently. The once loving and caring mother became harsh and demanding. Nora, now responsible for many household chores, was often scolded for the smallest mistakes. Nkechi's tone grew colder, and the warmth that Nora once felt began to fade. One afternoon, as Nora struggled to carry a heavy basket of yams, Nkechi snapped at her, "Hurry up, you are so slow. Why can't you be more like Amanda?" Nora's heart sank. She couldn't understand why Nkechi had become so cruel. She missed the gentle woman who had once sung her lullabies and comforted her fears. Meanwhile, Amanda received all the affection and attention. Nkechi pampered her younger daughter, ensuring she had the best clothes and toys. Amanda, unaware of the growing rift, basked in the love and care that she received. The disparity in treatment did not go unnoticed by villagers. Some whispered among themselves, speculating about Nkechi's change in behavior. What happened to her? They wondered. Why is she so harsh, especially with Nora? Nkechi's treatment of Nora only worsened, and the young girl often found herself questioning why her mother seemed to hate her that much. Even as Nora grew into an adult, she was more confused and hurt by the change. She couldn't understand why the woman she considered her own mother would treat her so bad. Every day brought new tasks and harsh words. "Nora, sweep the compound," Nkechi would order, "and make sure you fetch water before dawn." Despite her efforts to please Nkechi, nothing Nora did seemed to be enough. The chores piled up, and Nkechi's demands grew more unreasonable. Nora would wake up early and go to bed late, exhausted from the constant work. She was given the heaviest chores, while Amanda played freely or received special treats from Nkechi. One evening, as Nora was scrubbing the kitchen floor, Amanda walked in with a new doll Nkechi had bought for her. "Look, Mama got me this doll, isn't she pretty?" Amanda said, her eyes shining with excitement. Nora forced a smile. "Yes, she is. I'm happy for you." The unfair treatment continued for years, and Nora often wondered why Nkechi hated her so much. Her questions were met with silence or more harshness. "Why does she hate me?" Nora would whisper to herself at night, tears streaming down her face. Nora's friend noticed the change and tried to comfort her. "Nora, you don't deserve this," her friend Chika said one afternoon. "You are strong. Don't let her break you." "I don't know what I did wrong, Chika," Nora replied, her voice filled with sorrow. "I tried my best, but it's never enough for her." The ill treatment intensified as Nora grew older. Nkechi made it clear that she wanted Amanda to have the best opportunities. She blocked and stopped all the rich suitors from marrying Nora, always finding a way to turn them away. One day, a wealthy young man named Amaka came to ask for Nora's hand in marriage. He was polite and well-mannered, with a bright future ahead of him. Nora felt a glimmer of hope as Amaka spoke to Nkechi. "Ma, I would like to marry Nora," Amaka said respectfully. "I promise to take care of her and provide her with everything that she needs." Nkechi's face hardened. "Nora is not yet ready for marriage," she said coldly. "She has many responsibilities here. Amanda is the one who needs a good match." Emeka was taken aback but nodded politely. "I understand, ma. Thank you for your time." Nora's heart sank as she watched Emeka leave. She knew she would never be allowed to marry someone who could take her away from Nkechi's control. Meanwhile, Nkechi focused on finding a wealthy suitor for Amanda. She was determined to ensure that Amanda had a comfortable and prosperous life. The years continued to pass, and Nora's life remained a circle of hard work and unfulfilled dreams. She saw Amanda's life flourish while her own dreams were crushed. Despite the hardships, Nora held on to the hope that one day things might change. She took solace in the small acts of kindness from her friends and the villagers who saw her struggles. Nkechi's determination to secure a worthy suitor for Amanda seemed successful when a man named Chukwudi arrived in the village. He was well dressed and charismatic, boasting of his riches and grand lifestyle in the city. Nkechi was immediately taken by him and believed he would be perfect match for Amanda. "Chukwudi, you have everything I want for my daughter," Nkechi said, smiling warmly at him. "Amanda deserves the best." Chukwudi grinned. "She will have everything she desires, Mama, I promise you." Nkechi quickly arranged the marriage, and within a few months, Amanda and Chukwudi were wed in a lavish ceremony. The village buzzed with excitement and many envied Amanda's good fortune. Nora watched the festivities from a distance, her heart heavy with mixed emotions. Shortly after the wedding, Amanda moved to the city with Chukwudi. At first, she sent messages to her mother, telling stories of her glamorous life. "Mama, the city is everything I dreamed of," Amanda wrote. "Chukwudi takes me to best places and I have everything I want." Nkechi beamed with pride, showing the letters to the villagers. "See how well Amanda is doing," she would say. "I made the right choice." However, the letters soon changed. Amanda began to hint at troubles in her marriage. "Mama, things are not as perfect as they seemed," she wrote in one letter. "Chukwudi is not the man I thought he was." It wasn't long before the truth came out. Chukwudi had been living a lie. He wasn't wealthy, but had borrowed money and cars to keep up appearances. His debts caught up with him, and he began to treat Amanda poorly. The once loving husband turned into a cruel and abusive man. Amanda returned to the village, her spirit broken. She revealed that Chukwudi had been unfaithful and had left her with nothing. "Mama, I am pregnant," Amanda cried. "Chukwudi abandoned me." Nkechi was devastated. She couldn't believe that she had been deceived and that her daughter had to suffer the consequences. The villagers, who had once admired Amanda's good fortune, now whispered about her misfortune. Meanwhile, Nkechi's treatment of Nora worsened. She blamed her for everything, using her as an outlet for her frustration and disappointment. Nora continued to bear the brunt of Nkechi's anger, working tirelessly to keep the household running. One day, a very poor farmer named Ifeanyi came to the village. He was looking for a wife and expressed interest in Nora. Nkechi saw this as an opportunity to rid herself of Nora and quickly arranged the marriage. "Nora, you will marry Ifeanyi," Nkechi announced. "He may be poor, but he will take care of you. You don't even need a rich man after all." Nora was hesitant, but agreed, knowing she had no choice. The wedding was simple, a stark contrast to Amanda's lavish ceremony. Ifeanyi took Nora to the city, where she discovered that he was not as poor as he claimed. He owned a successful business and lived in a comfortable home. "Nora, I wanted someone who would love me for who I am, not for my money," Ifeanyi explained, "and I see that kindness in you." Nora was overjoyed. She quickly adapted to her new life, and within a year, she gave birth to a bouncing baby boy. Her life, which had been filled with hardship and sorrow, began to blossom with happiness and fulfillment. Back in the village, Amanda struggled to rebuild her life. She gave birth to her child and tried to make ends meet. She moved in with Nkechi, who was now consumed with guilt and regret. One day, news reached Nora that Nkechi was seriously ill. At first, she refused to go back to the village. "Why should I bother seeing someone who despised me so much?" she said to Ifeanyi. "Please, my love," Ifeanyi urged. "It is important to face the past and find closure." And after much persuasion, Nora agreed to return to the village. When she arrived, she found Nkechi bedridden and Amanda struggling to care for her two children from different fathers. The sight filled her with a mixture of pity and resentment. Nkechi, frail and remorseful, reached out to Nora. "Nora, I am sorry for everything," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I was wrong and you deserve better." The village elders also gathered, pleading with Nora to forgive her. "Nora's forgiveness is going to be your path to healing," one elder said. Nora looked at Nkechi and Amanda, her heart heavy with the weight of the shared past. "I'm sorry, I can't stay here, I need to leave." Nora just helped Nkechi pay her hospital bills and opened a small store for Amanda to support her children. Then she turned to the city, determined to focus on her own family and happiness, while extending a little hand of support from afar. Nora's return to the city marked a new chapter in her life. The visit to the village had left her with a mixed emotions, but it also gave her a sense of closure. Back home, she poured her energy into her family and their future. Ifeanyi, her loving husband, supported her every step of the way. Her life with Ifeanyi was filled with love and stability, and their son, Chidera, was growing up in a happy home. Despite the scars from her past, Nora was determined to build a future filled with hope and love. In the village, Amanda struggled to run the store Nora had set up for her. She was grateful for her sister's help, but found it challenging to juggle the responsibilities of motherhood, business, and taking care of her ill mother. Her two children, who had different fathers, were a constant reminder of her tumultuous past. Meanwhile, Nkechi's health continued to decline. The illness that had taken hold of her body showed no signs of relenting. She was bedridden, most days relying on Amanda for care. The once proud and formidable woman was now frail and dependent. Back in the city, Nora and Ifeanyi's life flourished. Ifeanyi's business continued to grow, and Nora found joy in managing their home and raising their son. They decided to have another child, and soon Nora was pregnant again. The news brought immense happiness to their household. "Nora, my love," Ifeanyi said, placing a hand on her growing belly. "I can't wait to meet our new baby." Nora smiled, feeling the baby kick. "Me too, Ifeanyi." As Nora's pregnancy progressed, she continued to send money and supplies to Amanda and Nkechi, despite her decision to keep her distance. She couldn't completely turn her back on them. The past had shaped her, but it wouldn't define her future. In the months that followed, Nora gave birth to a healthy baby girl whom they named Adanna. The arrival of their daughter brought even more joy and completeness to their family. Ifeanyi and Nora reveled in the happiness of their growing family. "Nora, look at our beautiful daughter," Ifeanyi said, cradling Adanna in his arms. "We are so blessed." He kissed her on the forehead and hugged her tightly. Nora's life in the city continued to thrive, and Ifeanyi's business kept on flourishing. Little Chidera and Amanda brought endless joy to their home, yet Nora couldn't shake the feeling that something was still unresolved. Despite her efforts to move on, the past continued to linger in her thoughts. One day, Nora got a text from Amanda. This time, it carried an urgent tone. "Nora, Mama's health has deteriorated rapidly. The doctor said she doesn't have much time left. She keeps asking for you. Please come if you can." Nora read the messages several times, her heart heavy with the weight of its content. She knew she had to go back, not just for Nkechi, but for herself too. She needed closure and perhaps a final chance to understand everything that had happened. "Ifeanyi, I need to go back to the village," Nora said, showing him the message. Ifeanyi nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I will come to you, my love. We will go together as a family." They made arrangements and traveled back to the village. As they approached Nkechi's home, memories of their childhood and harsh years resurfaced. Nora took a deep breath, determined to face whatever awaited her. Amanda greeted them at the door, her face lined with worry and fatigue. "Nora, thank you so much for coming. Mama is inside. She has been asking of you." Nora entered the dimly lit room, where Nkechi lay on a small bed, looking frail and tired. Her eyes lit up when she saw Nora, Nora, you have come, she whispered, reaching out a trembling hand. Nora took her hand, feeling a mix of emotions. Yes, Mama, I am here. Nkechi's eyes filled with tears. Nora, I have so much to say. I was wrong. I should have treated you better. You deserved love and kindness, not the pain I caused you. Yet you still have been so kind to me. Nora felt a lump in her throat. Why, Mama? Why did you treat me that way? What did I ever do to you? Nkechi sighed deeply, gathering her thoughts. There is something you need to know, Nora. I am not your biological mother. Nora froze, the revelation hitting her like a storm. What do you mean? If you're not my mother, who then is? Nkechi looked away, guilt etched on her face. Your real mother, Adobe, died giving birth to you. Ikenna married me when you were still a baby. I was consumed with jealousy and bitterness because he loved you so much more than I thought he loved me. I took out my frustrations on you because you reminded me of her. You excelled in school more than Amanda, and I got jealous again, not wanting you to outshine her. Nora felt her heart break. The woman she had called Mama all her life wasn't her mother. But why didn't you just tell me this before? She asked, tears streaming down her face. Nkechi sighed. I was afraid you would hate me even more. But now, I need you to know the truth. I am sorry for everything, Nora. I should have loved you as my own, but I failed. Nora listened, her heart aching for the mother she had lost and the stepmother who had failed her. Mama, I forgive you. I just needed to understand. Nkechi nodded, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, Nora. I hope you can find peace. Amanda stood by the door, her own eyes filled with tears. Nora, you've always been stronger than me. You've endured so much. Nora embraced her sister. We both did what we had to do to survive. It's time we moved forward. In the following days, Nora and Ifeanyi stayed in the village, helping Amanda take care of Nkechi. They talked about their childhood, shared memories and began to heal the wounds of the past. Nkechi, though weak, found some solace in their forgiveness. As Nkechi's condition worsened, Nora and Amanda took turns caring for her, ensuring she was comfortable. One quiet evening, with her daughters by her side, Nkechi took her last breath, leaving a legacy of pain and a chance for redemption. The villagers gathered to mourn her passing, acknowledging her strengths and weaknesses. After the final funeral, Nora and Ifeanyi prepared to return to the city. Amanda walked them to their car. Thank you, Nora, for everything you've done. I cannot repay you. Nora smiled, feeling a sense of closure. We will stay in touch, Amanda, and remember, we are here for you. As they journeyed back to the city, Nora felt lighter. The past had been painful, but it had also shaped her into the strong woman she had become. She was ready to embrace the future, carrying the lessons and love she found along the way. The return to the city marked a fresh start for Nora and her family. The revelations and reconciliations in the village had brought a sense of closure and understanding. She threw herself into her roles as a mother and a wife, with even more vigor. Chidera and Adanna were growing up quickly, and Nora wanted to ensure they had the best upbringing possible. Ifeanyi's business flourished, providing them with stability and comfort. Nora, the children are lucky to have you, Ifeanyi said one evening, watching as Nora helped Adanna with her homework. We are lucky to have each other, Nora replied, smiling at her husband. Our family is everything to me. And despite the challenges they faced, Nora and Ifeanyi's love remained strong. They supported each other through every trial and celebrated triumph together. Their home was filled with laughter and warmth and the promise of a bright future. Back in the village, Amanda managed to turn the small store into a thriving business. Her determination and resilience paid off, and she was able to provide a stable life for her children. The bond between Amanda and Nora grew stronger with each passing day. They shared history, forging a connection that distance couldn't break. Years passed, and Nora's children grew up in a loving and supporting environment. Chidera and Adanna excelled in school and brought endless delights to their household. One day, as Nora watched her children play, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here, the pain and the suffering of her childhood, the revelation about her true parentage, and the ultimate forgiveness she had found had all shaped her into the woman she was. Nora felt a deep sense of contentment. She had faced many trials, but she also found immense joy. Her family was her greatest achievement, and the love they shared was the foundation of their happiness. In the end, Nora realized that life was about the journey and the lessons learned along the way. She had found peace, forgiveness, and love. The future was bright, and she was ready to embrace it with open arms, surrounded by the family she cherished above all else. The story of Nora teaches us that resilience and forgiveness are powerful tools. Despite hardships and mistreatment, Nora's strength helped her overcome challenges. She forgave those who wronged her, finding peace in her heart. The love and support of her family played a crucial role in her healing and happiness. The story reminds us that with resilience and forgiveness, we can overcome our past and build a bright future. The babies cried insistently, their needs overwhelming her. With no one else to run to, Dami begged the neighbors and strangers for food. Most people ignored her, while a few gave her sympathetic glances and small amounts of money. At night, Dami stayed up soothing the twins' cries, rocking them gently in her arms. Kunle and Bola were lovers who seemed destined for a perfect life together. Their love story was the talk of the town. Friends and family admired their bond, seeing them as the ideal couple. After a few years of dating, they decided to tie the knot in a grand ceremony. The wedding was a day of joy and celebration, with laughter, music, and dancing filling the air. Everyone present could see the love in their eyes as they exchanged vows, promising to support each other through thick and thin. They moved into a beautiful house they had bought, a symbol of their commitment and hard work. The house was spacious, with a well-kept garden and a cozy interior that reflected their personalities. They spent their evenings cuddled on the couch, dreaming about their future. "Bola, I feel like the luckiest man in the world," Kunle often said, holding her close. "Kunle, you make every day special," Bola would reply with a smile. Bola enjoyed her life to the fullest. She attended glamorous parties, bought the latest fashions, and pampered herself with regular spa visits. Her friends envied her lifestyle, often asking for advice on how to achieve such happiness. Kunle, on his part, worked diligently, ensuring they could afford this life of comfort. He was a responsible and loving husband, always putting Bola's needs first. "Bola, I bought you that dress you liked," Kunle said one evening, handing her a shopping bag. "Oh, my darling, you're the best," Bola exclaimed, hugging him tightly. Their joy multiplied when Bola found out she was pregnant. The news brought an overwhelming sense of excitement and anticipation. "Kunle, we are going to have a baby," Bola announced, tears of joy in her eyes. Kunle lifted her off the ground in a joyful embrace. "This is the best news ever, Bola. We are going to be parents." Throughout her pregnancy, Kunle was the epitome of a doting husband. He attended every doctor's appointment with her, held her hand during ultrasounds, and made sure she had everything she needed. As the months went by, they decorated the nursery together, choosing soft colors and baby-themed decorations. Kunle assembled the crib, while Bola selected tiny clothes and toys. They often spent evening in the nursery, dreaming about their future with their baby in it. Bola's pregnancy was a time of bonding and deeper connections between them. They attended prenatal classes, reading parenting books, and talked about the kind of parents they wanted to be. Kunle often cooked for Bola, ensuring she had nutritious meal to support her and the baby. Finally, the day arrived when Bola went into labor. Kunle was by her side, holding her hand and encouraging her through every contraction. Hours later, their baby girl was born. The room filled with the sound of her first cries, and tears streamed down Kunle and Bola's faces. "Welcome to the world, my baby," Kunle said softly. "I'll call you Damilola." He cradled their newborn daughter in his arms. "She's perfect," Bola whispered, gazing at Damilola with love. Their hearts swelled with pride and joy as they held their baby for the first time. In that moment, everything felt complete. They had a lovely home, a beautiful daughter, and each other. They believed nothing could ever go wrong, that their love would conquer all challenges. As the years passed, the once perfect life Kunle and Bola had built began to show signs of strain. Kunle's job, which had seemed sufficient in the beginning, was no longer able to support Bola's luxurious lifestyle. The house, while still lovely, started to feel more like a burden than a home. "Bola, we need to cut back on some expenses," Kunle suggested one evening as they went through their monthly budget. "Cut back? On what, Kunle? I barely have enough for the essentials," Bola retorted, her voice sharp. Kunle sighed, knowing that Bola's definition of essentials included expensive dresses, spa treatment, and frequent parties. Despite being comfortable by most standards, Bola's desire for more luxury grew stronger each day. Bola started taking contraceptives without telling Kunle. She didn't want to bring another child into the situation where she felt her needs weren't being met. One evening, as they sat in their living room, Bola brought up the topic again. "Kunle, I won't have another child unless you get a better job." Kunle looked at her, frustration evident in his eyes. "Bola, I'm doing my best. Jobs don't just appear out of nowhere." "Your best is not good enough," Bola snapped back. "I deserve more, and so does our daughter Dami." These arguments became a regular occurrence in their household. Dami, now 9 years old, often overheard their fight and felt the tension growing between her parents. She missed the days when they were happy and everything seemed perfect. One day, Bola discovered she was pregnant again. She was shocked and didn't know how to break the news to Kunle. For days, she kept it to herself, hoping for a miracle. And when she finally told him, Kunle was both surprised and doubtful. "Bola, how is this possible? You've been taking contraceptives," Kunle questioned, his voice filled with suspicion. Bola avoided his gaze. "I don't know, it just happened." Kunle chose not to press the issue, hoping for the best. However, a seed of doubt was planted in his mind. He wondered if the child was really his, but decided to keep his fears to himself. As Bola's pregnancy progressed, she continued to pressure Kunle about finding a better job. "Kunle, we can't support another child on your current salary. You need to do something. You need to be a man. Act." "Bola, I have been looking for a new job." "It is not that simple," Kunle replied, feeling the weight of her demands. Bola's desire for luxury remained unfulfilled, and she grew more resentful. She started distancing herself from Kunle, spending more time with her friends who had wealthier husbands. Kunle noticed the change but felt powerless to stop it. Their once happy home was now filled with tension and unspoken fears. Kunle and Bola were drifting apart, and neither knew how to bridge the growing gap between them. Despite their impending arrival of their new baby, the cracks in their relationship continued to widen, threatening to break them apart completely. The day the twins were born was a day of joy and challenging for Kunle and Bola. The arrival of two boys brought a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Kunle held the tiny infants in their arms, feeling an overwhelming sense of responsibility. "Look at them, Bola, they are beautiful," Kunle said softly, his eyes filled with love. Bola smiled weakly, exhausted from the delivery. "Yes, they are beautiful, But Kunle, how are we going to manage 3 kids? Kunle's heart sank a little at her words, but he tried to stay positive. We will manage, Bola. We will find a way. In the weeks that followed, the house was filled with the cries of newborns and the bustling activities of caring for them. Dami was thrilled to be a big sister and often helped her parents with the babies. Dami, can you bring me a diaper? Bola would call out. Yes, mommy, Dami replied eagerly, rushing to assist. Despite the joy of the new additions, the financial strain on the family became more apparent. Kunle's job was not enough to cover the increasing expenses, and Bola's dissatisfaction grew. Kunle, we can't keep living like this, Bola said one evening as they sat at the dinner table. You need to make more money, more money. Kunle sighed, feeling the weight of her words. Bola, I am doing everything I can. It is not that simple. Let's manage the one we have for now. Bola was relentless. She started pressuring Kunle to resign from his job and join her friend's husband in an illegal business that promised quick and substantial money. Kunle was immediately wary of the idea. Bola, that's illegal. I won't risk our family's future for quick money, Kunle insisted. Bola's frustration boiled over. Kunle, we have 3 kids now. We need to make more money. We can't survive on your salary alone. Kunle resisted, but the pressure became unbearable. Bola's constant nagging and the burden of their new twin boys pushed him to the edge. The once happy home was now filled with tension and unspoken fears. Bola's friend often flaunted their wealth, and Bola couldn't help but feel envious. She wanted the same luxuries for her family and believed that Kunle was holding them back. One day, Bola sat Kunle down, her face stern. Kunle, you need to make a decision. Are you going to let us live in poverty forever, or are you going to do something about it? Kunle felt trapped. He loved his family and wanted to provide for them, but the thought of engaging in an illegal activities terrified him. The tension in the house grew with each passing day, and Kunle found himself dreading coming home from work. Bola, please try to understand. I can't just quit my job and do something illegal, Kunle pleaded. Then what are we supposed to do, Kunle? Watch our children suffer, Bola retorted, her voice filled with desperation. Kunle knew she had the point, but he couldn't bring himself to take the dangerous step. The constant arguments took a toll on their relationship, and the distance between them grew. One evening, after a particularly heated argument, Kunle sat alone in the living room. Bola had stormed out, leaving him to deal with the chaos. Kunle, we can't go on like this, Bola had shouted before slamming the door behind her. Kunle knew she was right, but he didn't know what to do. He felt like he was being torn apart. On one side, there was his duty to provide for his family. On the other, his moral compass and fear of the consequences. Days turned into weeks, and the pressure from Bola never let up. She made the house unbearable for Kunle, nagging him constantly and making it clear that she blamed him for their situation. She reminded him daily of the burden of raising 3 children in his major salary. The breaking point came one night when Kunle found himself alone with the twins while Bola was out with her friends. The baby boys, Mofe and Mide, were particularly fussy, and Dami tried to help but looked just as exhausted as he felt. Daddy, why is mommy always so angry? Dami asked innocently, her eyes widened with concern. Kunle didn't know how to answer. He just hugged her tightly and whispered, It's not your fault, Damilola. Things will get better, I promise. But deep down, he wasn't sure how to make that promise a reality. He felt the weight of his family's need pressing down on him, and Bola's voice echoed in his mind. Kunle finally gave in and joined the illegal business. It was drug trafficking. Despite his initial reluctance, Bola's unhealthy pressure and the family's financial struggles forced him to take the plunge. The thought of quick money seemed like the only way out of their dire situation. Kunle met with Bola's friend's husband, who laid out the plan. The man was smooth and persuasive, painting a picture of easy money and a better life. Kunle, this is a simple job. Just deliver the package and you will get paid handsomely, he explained, sliding a small carefully wrapped bundle across the table. Kunle felt a knot in his stomach as he took the package. He knew he was venturing into something dangerous, but the desperate look on Bola's face and the needs of his children pushed him forward. On the day of his first trip, Kunle was a bundle of nerves. He kept replaying the instructions in his mind, trying to calm himself. The journey was supposed to be straightforward, but his anxiety made every moment feel like an eternity. He clutched the package tightly, his heart pounding with each step he took. As he reached the designated drop-off point, Kunle felt a surge of hope. Perhaps this would be the solution to all of their problems. Just as he was about to make the exchange, police officers swarmed the area, panic setting, and Kunle's mind raced. He tried to run, but it was too late. The officers apprehended him and the package fell from his hands, revealing its illegal contents. Kunle was arrested on the spot. The reality of his situation hit him like a freight train. He was taken to the police station where he was interrogated and then sent to prison. The news of his arrest spread quickly and Bola was among the first to hear of it. Fear and shame consumed Bola. She couldn't face the reality of Kunle's imprisonment and the impending social stigma. In a state of panic, she made a decision that would change their family's life forever. She packed a few belongings, took some money and fled, leaving Dami and the twins behind. When Dami discovered her mother's departure, she was devastated. She had been a pillar of strength for her family, but this betrayal shook her to the core. With tears streaming down her face, she took on the role of a caretaker for her baby brothers, Mofe and Mide. Despite her pain, Dami knew she needed to see her father. She visited Kunle in prison, hoping to find some solace and guidance. As she stood in front of him, the weight of their situation pressed down on her. "Be strong, Dami. Take care of your mom and siblings," Kunle urged her, his voice choked with emotions. "Daddy, mommy left us," Dami sobbed, the reality of their abandonment sinking in. Kunle's heart shattered at her words. He had hoped to protect his family, but now, from behind bars, he felt utterly helpless. The guilt and despair were too much to bear. The thought of his children suffering because of his choices gnawed at him. The next day, the prison guards found Kunle's lifeless body in the cell. He had taken his own life, unable to cope with the crushing burden of his failure and the loss of his family, especially the news that his wife had abandoned his children. The news of Kunle's suicide reached Dami and her world crumbled. The sudden loss of her both parents left her feeling hopeless and terrified. She was only 9, yet the responsibility of caring for her twin brothers, Mofe and Mide, fell squarely on her young shoulders. The babies cried insistently, their needs overwhelming her. She tried calling her mother repeatedly, but each attempt was met with silence. Eventually, Bola blocked her number, leaving Dami in complete despair. "Mommy, please come back, we need you," Dami whispered into the phone, tears streaming down her face. With no one else to run to, Dami begged the neighbors and strangers for food. Most people ignored her, while a few gave her sympathetic glances and small amounts of money. She used the little she could get to buy food and diapers for her brothers, stretching every coin as far as she could. "Please, sir, can you spare us some money? My brothers are hungry," Dami asked a passerby one afternoon. The man handed her a few naira notes. "Take care, little one," he said. Desperation pushed Dami to start hawking water by the roadside. She would stand under the scorching sun, calling out to passing cars and pedestrians, hoping to make enough money to feed Mofe and Mide. It was an exhausting work, but she didn't have a choice. At night, Dami stayed up, soothing the twins' cries, rocking them gently in her arms. The lack of sleep took a toll on her, but she pressed on, determined to keep them safe and fed. She missed her father terribly and often cried herself to sleep, wishing he was there to help. Relatives refused to take them in, citing their own financial struggles and the difficulty of caring for two infants. Dami felt utterly alone, abandoned by those who were supposed to be family. "Please, auntie, can't you help us?" Dami pleaded with one of her aunties. "I am sorry, Dami. I can't take in three children. I have six. It is too much for me," her auntie replied, closing the door at her. Despite the overwhelming odds, Dami refused to give up. She learned to navigate the market, haggling for better prices on baby supplies. She found small ways to stretch her limited resources, becoming resourceful beyond her years. One evening, as she sat with the twins, feeding them with the little food she had managed to buy, Dami thought of her father. She remembered his warmth and kindness, the way he had always protected and provided for them. She vowed to honor his memory by being strong for Mofe and Mide. "I miss you so much, Daddy, and I will always love you," she whispered to the darkness. "I promise I will take care of them." The days turned into weeks, and Dami's routine of hawking water and caring for her brothers became her new normal. She faced each day with a determination that belied her age, driven by a fierce love for her family. Her small, fragile frame carried a burden far too heavy, yet she bore it with resilience. In the midst of her struggle, she found a moment of joy. The twins' first smiles, their laughter as she played peekaboo, and their tiny hands gripping hers gave her strength. Those fleeting moments of happiness reminded her why she fought so hard every day. Years passed, and Dami did menial jobs to survive. Every day was a struggle, but her determination never wavered. She knew she had to be strong for her twin brothers, Mofe and Mide. The boys grew and their needs changed, but Dami's resolve remained steadfast. When the twins turned 5, Dami knew it was time for them to start school. Despite their dire financial situation, she wanted them to have the education that she had to give up. "Mofe, Mide, you are going to school soon," Dami announced one evening as they sat around together. "School, really?" Mide asked, his eyes wide with excitement. "Yes," Dami confirmed, smiling at their enthusiasm. She enrolled them in a small local school that she could afford with her limited earnings. The first day of school was a proud moment for Dami. She walked them to the school gate, holding their hands tightly. "Be good and listen to your teachers," she instructed them, kneeling to their level. Dami felt a mix of pride and sadness. She had sacrificed her own education to provide for them, and seeing them take their first steps toward a better future made it all worthwhile. To support their schooling, Dami worked tirelessly. During the week, she hawked drinks by the busy streets, calling out to passerbys and offering her goods. "Buy your cold drinks here," she would often shout, standing under the hot sun. Her days were long, starting early in the morning and ending late in the night. On weekends, she took on cleaning and laundry jobs for people in the neighborhood. She scrubbed the floors, washed clothes, and did whatever was necessary to make ends meet. She was driven by the desire to see her brothers succeed. Every time she felt like giving up, she reminded herself of the smiles on Mofe and Mide's faces and the promise of a better future for them. Her sacrifices were never unnoticed by the twins. They often helped her with chores around the house and were diligent in their studies, knowing how much their education meant to her. As the years went by, Dami continued to juggle her responsibilities, sacrificing her own dreams for the sake of her brothers. She missed her father every day and often wondered what life would have been like if he were still alive. But she drew strength from his memory and the love he had shown them. Severally, she attempted to call her mother, but the number was still blocked. At some point, she had to move on, concluding that her mother has also moved on without them. She didn't know why her mother would be so cruel to them, but she decided that this is what fate had for them. The bond between Dami and her brothers grew stronger with each passing day. They looked up to her, not just as a sister, but as a mother who had given up everything for their well-being. They promised themselves that they would make her proud and repay her for all the sacrifices that she had made. "One day, big sis, we will take care of you, just like you've taken care of us," Mofe said one evening. "I'm really proud of you both, and that's all I need," Dami replied, her eyes filled with tears of joy and love. More years passed, and the twins were now 10, and Dami was 19. They had grown into bright, cheerful boys, thanks to Dami's unwavering dedication and love. She had managed to provide for them despite the odds, working tirelessly and ensuring they never felt the absence of their parents. One day, as Dami was returning home from one of her cleaning jobs, she saw a familiar figure standing by their house. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized her mother, Bola. Bola looked worn and haggard, a stark contrast to the glamorous woman who had once been. "Dami," Bola called out, her voice trembling, "I am back." Dami felt a surge of anger and pain. She had carried the burden of their abandonment for years, and seeing her mother now, after all these years, reopened old wounds. "How can you abandon us for wealth, mommy?" Dami confronted her mother, her voice cold and steady. Bola looked down, unable to meet Dami's eyes. "Dami, I made a mistake. Please let me explain." But Dami was not ready to listen. "You left us. You left me, Mofe and Mide alone. You have no right to come back now. We are just fine without you." Bola kept coming back, each time pleading for a chance to explain herself. She looked more frail with each visit, but Dami remained firm. The pain of their abandonment was too deep, but she could not forgive her so easily. "Don't come back unless you bring our father with you," Dami told her one day, her voice unwavering. Bola's eyes filled with tears. She had heard of Kunle's death and knew that Dami's demand was impossible. Dami turned away, closing the door behind her. She couldn't let herself be swayed by her mother's remorse. She had to protect her brothers, and that meant staying strong. As time went on, Bola's health declined. She became a shadow of her former self, her body weakened by illness and regret. Despite her attempts to reconnect with her children, Dami's refusal to forgive her left her isolated and alone. One day, Dami received a call from a neighbor informing her that Bola was gravely ill. Torn between her lingering anger and the duty she felt as a daughter, Dami decided to visit her mother. She found Bola lying in a small dingy room, her face pale and drawn. "Mom," Dami said softly, stepping into the room. Bola opened her eyes, a flicker of hope in her gaze. "Dami, you have come." "I needed to see you," Dami replied, her voice filled with a mix of emotion. "Mommy, why did you leave us?" Bola's eyes filled with tears. "Dami, I am sorry. I thought I was doing what was best, but I was wrong, and now I have paid the price." Dami listened as Bola recounted her years of regret and loneliness. The weight of her mother's sorrow softened Dami's heart, and she felt a pang of pity. "I'm sorry, Dami, I failed you. I failed your brothers, Mofe and Mide," Bola whispered, her voice weak. "Well, we've survived. I took care of them," Dami said, her voice breaking. Bola reached out her trembling hands. "I know. You are so strong, Dami. Please forgive me." Tears streamed down Dami's face as she held her mother's hands. "I forgive you, but I don't need you in my life." Bola's eyes closed, a look peace settling over her features. She passed away shortly after, her last moment filled with the forgiveness she had sought for so long, even though she never got a chance to reconnect with her sons. After Bola's death, Dami continued to take care of her brothers, who saw her as their mother. She worked hard, ensuring they had a better life than she had. The bond between them grew stronger, built on the foundation of love and sacrifices. "Dami, you are the best sister in the world," Mofe said one evening. "And the best mother," Mide added, hugging her tightly. Dami smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment. The twins grew up under Dami's care. Mofe and Mide were now teenagers, full of life and ambition. Dami had worked tirelessly to provide for them, ensuring they had everything they needed, even if it meant sacrificing her own dreams. She had taken on multiple jobs, working as a cleaner during the day and a vendor in the evenings. As the twins approached graduation, Dami felt a mix of pride and relief. She had managed to keep them on the right path despite the many obstacles they faced. Their achievements in school were a testament to her dedication. Dami, I just got an admission into the university, Mofe announced one evening, holding an acceptance letter. Me too, Mide added, waving his own letter excitedly. Oh my god, I am so proud of you both, she said, hugging them tightly. After the twins had graduated, Dami finally had the chance to go back to school. She enrolled in an evening class at a local college, determined to pursue her education. Her father's words echoed in her mind, motivating her to strive for a better life. Dami, education is the key to a bright future, Kule had often said. Balancing work and studies was challenging, but Dami was used to hard work. She spent her days working and her nights studying, driven by the desire to create a better future for herself and for her brothers. The twins supported her, taking on more responsibilities at home to lighten her load. Their support and encouragement kept her going even on the toughest days. Dami excelled in her studies, fueled by her determination and the sacrifices she had made. Years later, Dami had finished her education and secured a good job. She had become a successful accountant at a reputable firm, earning enough to provide a comfortable life for her family. The twins were also doing well in their respective careers. The family was finally stable and thriving. Thank you so much, big sis. You're the best mom ever, Mofe and Mide often said, gratitude evident in their eyes. Dami felt a sense of fulfillment. I did it for love. We are a family, and family means never giving up on each other. The road had been long and difficult, but Dami knew it had all been worth it. She had honored her father's memory and overcome her mother's abandonment. She had created a life of stability and happiness for herself and her brothers, proving that love and determination could conquer any obstacle. As they looked ahead to the future, Dami felt hopeful and excited. She had dreams of furthering her career, traveling, and even maybe finding love. But most importantly, she knew that whatever came next, she and her brothers would face it together. The moral lesson of this beautiful story is that love, determination, and resilience can overcome even the most challenging obstacles. Despite facing abandonment, poverty, and immense responsibility at a young age, Dami's dedication to her family and her relentless hard work allowed her to provide a stable and loving environment for her twin brothers. The story highlights the importance of family bonds, perseverance, and the belief that no matter how difficult life gets, one can achieve a better future through sacrifice, support, and an unbreakable spirit. Cheta was in labor and gave birth to twin girls. The delivery was quick but challenging. Nurse Ngozi, seeing the situation unfold, made a bold choice. She switched one of Cheta's babies with the deceased baby girl, deciding to give both children a chance at a better life. Emeka and Adanna Okeke were a very wealthy couple who had everything they could dream of except for a child. Emeka was a successful businessman in the oil and gas industry, while Adanna maintained her beautiful home in Enugu. Their mansion was grand, filled with luxurious furniture and expensive art, but it lacked the laughter of a child. For many years, Emeka and Adanna prayed and tried various medical treatments, hoping to become parents. Each negative test result brought them immense pain, but they never gave up. They visited specialists, tried traditional remedies, and attended prayer meetings, all in the hope of having a child. Despite their wealth and success, the absence of a child left a void in their lives. One morning, Adana woke up feeling unusually nauseous. She decided to take a pregnancy test, her heart pounding with anticipation as she waited for the results. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. When the two lines appeared, indicating a positive result, she let out a cry of joy, tears streaming down her face as she thanked God for answering their prayers. Emeka, she called out, her voice trembling with excitement. Emeka rushed into the room, his face filled with concern. Adana, what's wrong? He asked, his voice laced with worry. Adana held up the test with a shaky hand. We are going to have a baby, she said, her eyes shining with happiness. Emeka stared at the test for a moment, then pulled Adana into a tight embrace. Our prayers have been answered, he whispered, his voice choked with emotions. This child will be loved more than anything in the world, he said. The news of Adana's pregnancy brought immense joy to their home. They began preparing for their unborn child with great enthusiasm. The first step was decorating the nursery. They hired an interior designer to create a beautiful room for the baby. The walls were painted in soft pastel colors and they chose a crib with delicate carvings. They filled the room with soft animals, baby clothes, and all the necessities a newborn would need. Adana's pregnancy progressed smoothly. She attended regular checkups and the best obstetricians in the region. Emeka made sure she had everything she needed for a healthy pregnancy. They also attended prenatal classes together, learning about childbirth and the newborn care. They wanted to be fully prepared for the arrival of their baby. Their friends and family shared in their joy. They organized a small baby shower to celebrate. Gifts and well wishes poured in, filling their home with even more love and anticipation. Adana's friends offered advice and support, while Emeka's colleagues congratulated them on the upcoming addition to their family. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, looking through the baby names, Adana placed her hand on her growing belly. Emeka, we are finally going to have our miracle. I can't wait to hold our baby in my arms, she said, her voice filled with excitement. Emeka smiled, placing his hands over hers. Adana, our prayers have been answered. This child would be so loved. The morning of the delivery was filled with anticipation and nerves. Emeka and Adana woke up early, ensuring they had everything ready for the hospital. The drive to the hospital was quiet, filled with unspoken hopes and fears that come with bringing a new life into the world. At the hospital, Adana was quickly admitted and the medical team prepared for the delivery. Emeka held her hand, offering words of encouragement. The hours seemed to drag on as they waited for the moment they had dreamed of for so long. Finally, time came for Adana to deliver their baby. Emeka was by her side, his heart pounding with excitement and worry. Adana's labor was intense and she gave it her all, determined to bring her child into the world safely. The doctors announced the arrival of their baby girl, and for a moment the room was filled with joy. But almost immediately, complications arose. The medical team sprang up into action, working to stabilize Adana. In the chaos, Emeka's heart sank as he realized something was terribly wrong. Unbeknownst known to Emeka and Adana, their baby girl had not survived. The nurse, Ngozi, who had been part of their journey for years, felt a deep sadness as she watched the couple's joy turn into despair. She knew how much they had longed for this child, and she made a life-changing decision in that moment. At the same time, in another part of the hospital, a poor woman named Cheta was rushed in by a kind stranger. Cheta was in labor and gave birth to twin girls. The delivery was quick but challenging. Nurse Ngozi, seeing the situation unfold, made a bold choice. She switched one of Cheta's babies with the deceased baby girl, deciding to give both children a chance at a better life. I couldn't bear to see their hearts break again. This way, both children will have a chance at a better life, Nurse Ngozi whispered to herself as she carried out the switch. Cheta, exhausted and overwhelmed, was told that one of her twins had not survived. She cried for her lost child but clung on to the remaining baby, finding some solace in the kindness of the stranger who had brought her to the hospital. Emeka and Adana, unaware of the switch, were eventually given their daughter, though their initial joy was overshadowed by the complications Adana faced. They were relieved to have their baby girl in their arms. Back in Chita's room, she had her surviving daughter close, naming her Ifunanya, which simply means love. She was grateful for the child she had, even as she mourned the one she lost. Nurse Ngozi, watching from a distance, hoped that her decision would bring happiness to both families. Adana and Emeka took their daughter home, unaware of the switch. They named her Amara, meaning grace. The drive home was filled with mixed emotions. Adana was exhausted but happy, holding their precious baby girl in her arms. Emeka drove carefully, glancing back at his wife and daughter every few minutes, unable to believe that their dream had finally come true. As they arrived at their home, the staff greeted them with warm smiles and congratulations. The nursery, which they had lovingly prepared, was ready to welcome the newest member of the Okeke family. Soft pastel and colors adorned the walls, a beautiful crib stood at the center, and toys and baby clothes were neatly arranged. "Welcome home, baby Amara," Adana whispered as she gently placed her in the crib. Days turned into weeks, and Amara grew stronger and more beautiful with each passing day. She had everything a child could wish for: a loving family, a safe home, and all the luxury money could buy. Adana and Emeka doted on her, ensuring she never lacks anything. "Emeka, look at our beautiful baby. She is truly God's grace in our lives," Adana said as she rocked the baby to sleep. "Yes, she is perfect, and we are truly blessed," Emeka replied, his voice filled with love. Meanwhile, in a modest part of town, Cheta was adjusting to life with her daughter Ifunanya. Though she had lost one of her twins, she poured all of her love into raising Ifunanya. Their home was small, but filled with warmth. Cheta worked hard to provide for her daughter, taking up multiple jobs to make ends meet. Despite the challenges, Cheta found joy in little moments with Ifunanya. She would sing lullabies, tell stories, and cherish every smile and giggle from her baby girl. Ifunanya grew up in a nurturing environment, learning the value of hard work and resilience from her mother. As the years passed, Amara and Ifunanya grew up in their respective homes, unaware of their true origin. Amaka thrived in a luxurious surrounding, attending the best schools and having the finest things money could buy. She was a bright and cheerful child, loved by all who knew her. In contrast, Ifunanya grew up with fewer material possessions but was rich in love and values. Cheta ensured her daughter received a good education, even if it meant making sacrifices. Ifunanya was a smart and kind-hearted child, always willing to help others. Both families lived parallel lives, continued to nurture and love their daughters, unaware of the bond they shared. Years later, Emeka and Adana found themselves needing extra help around the house. Managing a large household and balancing their professional lives had become overwhelming. They decided to hire a maid to ease the burden. After interviewing several candidates, they chose Cheta, a hardworking and kind-hearted woman who had come in with her daughter, Ifunanya. Cheta's dedication and honesty impressed them, and they felt she would be a perfect fit for their family. Cheta and Ifunanya moved into the small quarters provided for the maid and her family. Ifunanya was a bright and cheerful girl, much like Amara. The two girls met for the first time in the garden, where Amara was playing with her toys. "Hi, I'm Amara," she introduced herself, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "I am Ifunanya," the other girl replied, a shy smile on her face. From that day on, the two girls became inseparable. They spent their days playing in their expansive garden and sharing stories and discovering the world together. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, much to the delight of Emeka and Adana. "Mommy, Daddy, please let Ifunanya come to my school. She's my best friend," Amara pleaded one evening at the dinner table. Adana smiled at Emeka, who nodded in agreement. Of course, Amara, we will make sure your friend gets the best education too, Adana said warmly. The next day, Emeka made the necessary arrangements, and soon Ifunanya was enrolled in the same prestigious school as Amara. The girls were thrilled to be able to spend even more time together, and their friendship blossomed even further. Amara and Ifunanya did everything together. They rode in the school bus, shared lunch, and helped each other with their homework. At school, they were known as the inseparable duo. Teachers often commented on how well they complemented each other, with Amara's outgoing nature and Ifunanya's thoughtful demeanor. At home, the dynamics also changed. Cheta found herself not only a maid but a part of the family in many ways. Adana and Emeka appreciated her hard work and dedication, and they often invited her and Ifunanya to join them for meals. The house was filled with laughter and warmth, creating a harmonious environment for everyone. One weekend, as the girls were playing in the garden, Adana watched from the balcony with a sense of fulfillment. Look at them, Emeka. They are so happy together. It's like they were meant to be sisters, she mused. Emeka nodded. Yes, Adana, they have a special bond. I'm glad we made the decision to help Ifunanya with her education. The months turned into a few years, and the girls continued to grow. They shared secrets, dreams, and even had their little arguments, just like real sisters. Their bond was unbreakable, and they supported each other through everything. One evening, as they sat under the stars in the garden, Ifunanya turned to Amara. I'm so happy we met. You are the best friend anyone could ask for. Amara smiled and hugged her tightly. Me too, Ifunanya. Would always be best friends, no matter what. As time passed, Emeka and Adana began to notice peculiar similarities between Amara and Ifunanya. Both girls shared the same outgoing personality, and they even had the same quirks and habits. What struck them the most was that both girls had similar allergies. They were allergic to the same type of food and had the same reaction to pollen and dust. One afternoon, Adana was helping Amara with her homework when she noticed Amara scratching her arms. What's wrong, Amara? Adana asked, concerned. It's just this rash again, Mom. It always happens when I'm outside too long, Amara replied, trying to focus on her work. Adana's thoughts wandered back to a similar incident with Ifunanya a few weeks ago. She had the same rash after playing outside. That evening, as Emeka and Adana discussed the day's event, Emeka brought up his observations. Adana, have you noticed how similar Amara and Ifunanya are? It's almost uncanny, Emeka remarked, his brow furrowed in thought. Yes, Emeka, it's strange, but they are best friends. Maybe they just picked up each other's habits, Adana replied, trying to brush off her own doubts. Despite her attempts to dismiss the similarities, Adana couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. She decided to observe the girls more closely. Over the next few weeks, she paid attention to their interactions and behavior. She noticed how they finished each other's sentences, liked the same food, and even had the same favorite colors. One day, while preparing dinner, Adana overheard a conversation between the girls. Amara, do you know we both love mangoes? Ifunanya said with excitement. Yes, Ifunanya, and we both hate peanuts. They make us feel itchy, Amara responded. Adana felt a chill run down her spine. The similarities were too many to ignore. She shared her growing concerns with Emeka. Emeka, I think there is more to this than just friendship. Their similarities go beyond what best friends usually share, Adana said, her voice filled with worry. Emeka nodded. I know, Adana. I have been thinking the same thing, but what can we do? They are happy and healthy. Maybe we are just overthinking. However, their concerns deepened when they noticed how the girls' bond affected their social interaction. Amara and Ifunanya became increasingly exclusive, often preferring each other's company over that of other children. They would spend hours together, talking, playing, and sharing secrets. It was an ordinary day when everything changed. Amara woke up feeling unwell. She was pale and her energy was low. Adana noticed immediately and grew concerned. "Amara, are you feeling okay?" she asked, placing a hand on her forehead. "Mommy, I feel really tired," Amara replied weakly. Adana decided to keep her home from school and called Dr. Obina to schedule an appointment. When they arrived at the clinic, Dr. Obina examined Amara thoroughly. His expression grew serious as he reviewed the results of the test. "Adana, Emeka, Amara needs a blood transfusion immediately. Her hemoglobin levels are dangerously low," Dr. Obina explained. Panic set in for Emeka and Adana. They both volunteered to donate blood, but after testing it was discovered that neither of them was a match. "What do we do now?" Adana asked, her voice trembling with fear. Just then, Cheta, who had accompanied them to the hospital, stepped forward. "Please let me help. If my blood can save her, I will gladly donate," she said with urgency in her voice. Dr. Obina nodded and quickly arranged for Cheta's blood to be tested. To everyone's surprise, her blood was a perfect match for Amara. The transfusion was carried out immediately and Amara's condition began to stabilize. While waiting, Dr. Obina couldn't shake off the nagging feeling of how unusual it was for non-relative blood to match so perfectly. After the procedure, he approached Emeka and Adana privately. "This is highly unusual. We should run a DNA test to ensure there are no further surprises," Dr. Obina suggested. Emeka and Adana exchanged worried glances. They had noticed the similarities between Amara and Ifunanya, but had never considered the possibility of a deeper connection. Reluctantly, they agreed to the DNA test. The next few days were filled with anxiety as they awaited the results. Emeka and Adana tried to go about their daily routine, but the thought of the impending revelation was always at the back of their minds. Finally, the day came when Obina called them into his office. He had a solemn expression on his face as he handed them the results. "I am afraid the test confirms that neither of you are Amara's biological parents," he said gently. Adana's knees went weak and Emeka held her tightly. "How is this possible?" Emeka asked, his voice shaking with emotion. Dr. Obina explained there could be a mix-up that happened at the hospital during the childbirth. It is not unheard of, though very rare. Given the match with Cheta's blood, it is possible that there is connection here. Confusion and disbelief washed over Emeka and Adana. They decided to confront Cheta with the results. That evening, after dinner, they sat down with her in the living room. "Cheta, we need to talk to you about something important," Emeka began, trying to keep his voice steady. "What is it, sir?" Cheta asked, sensing the seriousness in his tone. Emeka took a deep breath. "We did a DNA test on Amara, and it turns out that we are not her biological parents. The only reason we discovered this was because your blood was a perfect match for her and not us." Cheta looked shocked and confused. "I don't understand. How can this be?" Amara added, "We think that there might be a mix-up at the hospital. We need to know more about what happened the day our baby Amara was born." Emeka and Adana realized that the truth might even be more complicated than they had just imagined. They decided to investigate further, determined to uncover the full story and understand how their lives had become so intertwined. Determined to find answers, Emeka and Adana decided to return to the hospital where Amara was born. They needed to know how such a mix-up could have happened. They hoped to find someone who remembered the details of that fateful day. The hospital had changed a lot over the years. Many of the staff had retired or moved on. It seemed like an impossible task, but they were determined to get to the bottom of it. At the hospital, they asked to speak with the administration. After explaining their situation, the hospital director agreed to help. He brought out old records and tried to find anyone who might remember the day Amara was born. After hours of searching, they finally got a lead. An old nurse remembered that Nurse Ngozi had been working on the said day. "Nurse Ngozi, she retired a few years ago," the nurse said, "but I think I have her contact information. Let me get it for you." Armed with the contact information, Emeka and Adana made their way to Ngozi's home. They were both anxious and hopeful that they would finally get answers that they needed. When they arrived, they found a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. Emeka knocked on the door. After a few moments, an elderly woman opened it. It was Nurse Ngozi. "Can I help you?" she asked, a bit puzzled. "Are you Nurse Ngozi? We need to talk to you about something very important," Emeka said, his voice steady but urgent. She invited them inside and they explained the entire situation. As they spoke, Nurse Ngozi's face grew pale. She realized what they were getting at and knew that the time had come to reveal the truth. "I am so sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing. Please forgive me," Nurse Ngozi pleaded, her eyes filled with remorse. Adana's eyes filled with tears. "Please tell us what happened and what are you apologizing for?" she said, her voice trembling. Nurse Ngozi took a deep breath and began to recount the events of that day. "I remember it clearly. You both had struggled so much to have a child. When your baby didn't survive, I couldn't bear to see your heart break again. At the same time, another woman named Cheta had given birth to twin girls. She was told that one of her babies didn't survive. I actually was the one who switched the babies, thinking it would give both children a better chance at life." Emeka and Adana listened in stunned silence. The reality of what had happened was almost too much to process. The woman they had trusted with their child's life had made a decision that changed everything. "So Amara is actually Cheta's daughter," Emeka said slowly, trying to wrap his head around the revelation. Nurse Ngozi nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know it was wrong. I am so sorry for the pain I have caused you people. I never meant to hurt anyone. I was only trying to help. I am so sorry." The weight of the truth settled heavily on Emeka and Adana. They had come seeking answers, and now that they had them, they were faced with a new challenge. How to move forward with this knowledge. The lives of their children and their own would never be the same again. They knew they had to find a way to navigate this complex situation with care and compassion for the sake of both Amara and Ifunanya. After uncovering the truth from the nurse, Emeka and Adana knew that they had to confront Cheta. They decided to have the conversation in the privacy of their home to avoid causing unnecessary distress to the children. They invited Cheta to sit with them in the living room, sensing the gravity of the situation. "Cheta, there's something very important we need to discuss with you," Emeka began, trying to keep his voice calm. Cheta looked at him with concern, sensing the tension in the room. "What is it, sir?" Adana took a deep breath and she gently explained everything they had learned from Ngozi. She recounted how Amara and Ifunanya were switched at birth and how Ngozi's actions had been driven by compassion, albeit misguided. As the truth sank in, Cheta's face turned pale. She listened in stunned silence, her eyes brimming with tears. "I can't believe it. I thought I had lost my child forever," she whispered, her voice heartbreaking. The weight of the revelation was overwhelming. Cheta looked at Emeka and Adana, realizing the pain and confusion they must be feeling. She felt a mix of sorrow and relief. Sorrow for the years lost with her biological daughter, and relief that she had not truly lost her. Emeka reached out and placed a comforting hand on Cheta. "We are still victims in this. We must find a way to move forward together," he said, his voice filled with resolve. Adana nodded, her eyes filled with empathy. "Our girls, they have grown up as sisters. We can't undo the past, but we can work together to build a future where they know the truth and feel loved by all of us." Cheta wiped away her tears and nodded. "Yes, we must do what is best for Amara and Ifunanya. They deserve to know the truth, but we have to be careful about how we tell them." The three adults spent hours discussing how to handle the situation delicately. They agreed that the girls needed to know the truth, but decided to wait for the right moment. In the meantime, they would focus on supporting each other and ensuring that both Amara and Ifunanya felt secure and loved. The days that followed were filled with careful planning. Emeka and Adana continued to treat Cheta and Ifunanya with kindness and respect, ensuring that the household remained harmonious. They arranged for family counseling to help them navigate the complex emotions and conversations that lay ahead. One evening, as the family sat together for dinner, Emeka and Adana shared a knowing glance. It was time to begin the conversation with their daughters. They decided to start with small honest talks about family and identity, gradually preparing the girls for the full revelation. Amara, Ifunanya, we want to talk to you both about something important, Adana began gently, looking at the two girls who sat across from her. Both girls looked up with curious expression. What is it, Mom? Amara asked, sensing the seriousness in her mother's tone. Emeka continued, you both know how much we love you, right? There are some things about our family history that we think you are old enough to understand now. Over the next few weeks, they carefully shared pieces of the story, always reassuring the girls of their love and commitment. They explained the circumstances of their birth and the mix-up at the hospital. It was a lot for the girls to take in, but with the support of their parents and Cheta, they began to understand. The revelation was so overwhelming for everyone involved. Emeka and Adana were heartbroken, but also filled with gratitude for the years they had with Amara. They decided to keep both girls together, as they were sisters by blood. Cheta was given a permanent place in their home, and they all worked towards building a new blended family. The decision to forgive Nurse Ngozi was not easy, but Emeka and Adana understood her intentions. They reached out to her, offering forgiveness and inviting her to be part of their extended family. Nurse Ngozi, relieved and thankful, accepted the offer and became a frequent visitor, sharing her wisdom and stories with the girls. Life slowly returned to a new normal. The girls continued their schooling and extracurricular activities, thriving in the supportive environment created by their parents. Amara and Ifunanya's bond grew even stronger as they navigated the complexities of their shared history with maturities beyond their years. Adana and Cheta became close friends, supporting each other through the challenges of parenting and sharing the joys of watching their children grow. Emeka took on the role of a loving father to both girls, ensuring they never felt a lack of affection or attention. In the months and years that followed, the family continued to grow and thrive. They faced challenges together, always remembering the journey that brought them to this point. The story of their past became a source of strength and unity, reminding them of the power of love and forgiveness. They celebrated milestones together, each one a testament to their resilience and the bond they had forged. Birthdays, graduations, and family gatherings were filled with laughter and joy, creating cherished memories. The two families became one, healing together from the past and looking forward to a future filled with love and unity. They had learned that family was not just about blood, but about the connections they chose to nurture and the love they chose to give. The story of Emeka, Adana, Cheta, and their daughters teaches us that true family is built on love, not just by blood. Despite the painful revelation of the baby switch, the families chose love and understanding over anger and pain. They showed that forgiveness can heal deep wounds and create stronger bonds. The story reminds us that life's challenges can lead to a beautiful transformation when faced with an open heart. It encourages us to cherish our loved ones, seek forgiveness, and recognize that family is defined by love and care. Dozie, I am with child, she said, her voice quivering with a mix of fear and hope. Dozie's face turned pale, the smile vanishing in an instant. See, I know I am not responsible for this pregnancy. He instantly denied the pregnancy, his voice sharp and cold. He turned away, unable to look at her. Amara sank onto the ground, her sobs echoing through the empty fields. The dreams she had nurtured, the future she had envisioned with Dozie, crumbled around her. In the quiet village of Umwaka, there lived a young couple named Dozie and Amara. Their love story was the talk of the village, whispered about by the old women and admired by the young men. They had been in love since childhood, their bond growing stronger with each passing year. Dozie, a tall and strong man, was the pride of his family. His broad shoulders and warm smile made him the most sought-after young man in Umwaka. He was known for his hard work in the fields and his dedication to his family. Many young women in the village dreamt of catching his eyes, but Dozier's heart belonged only to Amara. Amara, with her radiant beauty and kind-hearted nature, was adored by everyone. Her laughter was like music, and her presence brought joy to everyone around her. She was often seen helping her mother at the market or caring for her younger siblings. Despite her responsibilities, she found time to be with Dozie, the man she loved. One moonlight evening, Dozie and Amara met under the old mango tree, where they often spent time together. The tree stood tall and majestic, its branches heavy with ripe fruits. Dozie held Amara close, his arms wrapped around her protectively. "I will always love you, Amara," he whispered, his voice filled with sincerity and passion. Amara smiled, her heart full with hope and dreams of a future together with Dozie. "And I will always love you too, Dozie," she replied, her voice soft and tender. They sat in comfortable silence, the sounds of the night surrounding them, the distant chirping of crickets and gentle rustle of leaves and the breeze, and the occasional hoot of an owl created a symphony that seemed to celebrate their love. Dozie looked into Amara's eyes, his heart swelling with emotion. He knew that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her, to build a family and create a home filled with love and happiness. "One day, Amara, we will have a beautiful home and with children running around," he said, his eyes shining with excitement. Amara's eyes sparkled with tears of joy. "Yes, Dozie, I believe that too, and I want that. Our love will carry us through any challenge," she said, her voice filled with conviction. But fate had other plans. A few months later, Amara noticed changes in her body. Her morning sickness, fatigue, and the slight swell in her belly could not be ignored. One afternoon, while helping her mother in the kitchen, she felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. Clutching the counter for support, she realized what was happening. With a mixture of fear and excitement, she hurried to the village midwife, who confirmed her suspicions. "Amara, you are with child," the midwife said gently, a warm smile on her face. Amara's heart pounded with a mix of emotions. She was carrying Dozie's child, a symbol of their love. She couldn't wait to tell him the news. She imagined his joy, his strong arms wrapping around her in a protective embrace. The vision gave her strength as she made her way to the fields where Dozie was working. She found Dozie taking a break under the shade of a tree, wiping sweat from his brow. His friends were nearby, laughing and chatting. Amara's steps were hurried, her excitement barely contained. "Dozie, I need to speak with you," she said, her voice filled with urgency. Dozie looked up, a smile playing on his lips. "Amara, my love, what is it?" he asked, standing up and leading her a little away from his friends for privacy. Amara took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "Dozie, I am with child," she said, her voice quivering with a mix of fear and hope. Dozie's face turned pale, the smile vanishing in an instant. "What? How can this be?" he stammered, his mind racing. He thought about his future, the plans he had made. His uncle, Chief Ike, had promised to take him abroad, to America. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Any distraction whatsoever could jeopardize it for good. "I cannot have these distractions now. See, I know I am not responsible for this pregnancy. He instantly denied the pregnancy, his voice sharp and cold. He turned away, unable to look at her. Amara's heart shattered at his words. Please, Dozie, don't leave me. You are the father of the child I am carrying, she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. This is our child, a part of both of us. But Dozie's mind was made up. The fear of losing his opportunity overshadowed his love for Amara. I can't, Amara. I just can't, he said, his back still turned to her. Amara's tears fell freely as she realized the gravity of his words. She reached out to touch his shoulders, but he stepped away. Desperation filled her voice as she tried one last time. Dozie, please. Dozie, please, I beg you with everything you hold dear. Think about our child. Dozie clenched his fist, fighting the urge to turn around. He knew that if he looked at her, he might falter. But the thought of his future, the promises of a better life, held him back. Without another word, he walked away, leaving Amara standing there, broken and alone. As he disappeared into the distance, Amara sank onto the ground, her sobs echoing through the empty fields. The dreams she had nurtured, the future she had envisioned with Dozie, crumbled around her. She was left alone with painful reality that she would have to face those challenges on her own. Dozie's uncle, Chief Ike, was a wealthy and influential man in Umuaka. His large, impressive compound was a symbol of success and power. Chief Ike had worked hard to attain his wealth. He had wanted the same for his nephew. He saw potential in Dozie and had big plans for him. The opportunity to go to America was a golden ticket to a prosperous future, one that could not be jeopardized by any distraction, especially not an unplanned pregnancy. When Chief Ike heard about Amaka's pregnancy, his face darkened with anger. Dozie, what is this nonsense I am hearing about you? He demanded, his voice booming through the spacious living room. Dozie, sitting nervously on the edge of a chair, looked down, unable to meet his uncle's furious gaze. Uncle, it was a mistake, he muttered, his voice barely audible. A mistake? You will not ruin your future over this girl. Chief Ike thundered. Do you know how many years I have worked to build this opportunity for you? How many sacrifices I have made? You will go to America and you will make something out for yourself. This village has nothing, absolutely nothing to offer you. Dozie's heart was heavy with guilt and confusion. He loved Amara deeply, but the weight of his uncle's words and the promise of a brighter future pulled him into the opposite direction. He had always looked up to Chief Ike, the man who had been more of a father to him than his own. Disappointing him felt like a betrayal of everything he had ever been taught. Uncle, Amara, Dozie started, but Chief Ike cut him off with a dismissive wave of his hand. No boss, Dozie, you must think of your future. This is your chance to rise above the limitations of this village. You cannot let this girl and her unborn child hold you back. If you want to succeed, you must be willing to make tough choices. Tough choices include taking risks, Chief Ike stated, his tone leaving no room for argument. Dozie was torn between his love for Amara and his ambition. The thought of leaving her behind, pregnant and alone, tore at his heart. But the vision of a life abroad, the opportunities and the prosperity it promised, loomed large on his mind. He felt trapped, like a bird caught in a snare with no easy way out. That night, as Dozie lay in bed, he replayed his uncle's words over and over in his mind. He knew what he had to do, but it didn't make the decision any easier for him. He could still hear Amara's pleas, see the tears in her eyes, but he steeled himself against the emotions threatening to overwhelm him. At the dawn, Dozie packed his bags. He avoided the usual route where he might run into Amara. He couldn't bear to face her, to see the pain and betrayal in her eyes. Without a word, he slipped away from the village, leaving behind the only life he had ever known and the woman he had loved since childhood. Amara, waking up the next morning, felt a chill run through her. She had hoped that Dose would change his mind, that he would choose their love over his ambitions. But as the hours passed, there was no sign of him. The harsh reality set in. Dose was nowhere to be found in the village. Heartbroken and alone, Amara sat by her window, staring at the path that Dose had taken. Her tears flowed freely, each one a testament to the shattered dreams and the love that had been abandoned. She knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but she vowed to be strong for the sake of her unborn child. Months passed, and Amara's belly grew heavily with the weight of her unborn child. The once nimble and active young woman now moved with a deliberate pace, her steps slower, her breath deeper. She continued to work hard on the fields, her hand ruffled by the soil and her back aching from the long hours. The villagers watched her with a mixture of pity and admiration. Despite her circumstances, Amara remained determined, her spirit unbroken. She rose before the dawn every day. Her swollen belly made even the simplest tasks a challenge. She fetched water from the stream, tended to the crops, and gathered firewood. The village women often whispered among themselves, marveling at her strength and resilience. Amara is a warrior. She is strong, they would say, and she will make it through. One stormy night, as the wind howled and the rain battered on the rooftops, Amara felt a sharp pain in her lower back. She winced, clutching her belly, knowing that the time had come. She was alone in her small house, the flickering flame of the kerosene lamp casting shadows on the wall. The pain intensified, and she knew she couldn't do this alone. Summoning all her strength, she made her way to her neighbor's house, each step a struggle. "Mama Nkechi! Mama Nkechi!" she called out, her voice strained with pain and urgency. Mama Nkechi, a kind and experienced woman, rushed out of her house, her face full of concern. "Amara, is it time?" she asked, seeing the agony on Amara's face. "Yes, so my baby is coming," Amara managed to say between gaps. Mama Nkechi quickly gathered a few other women from the village, and together they helped Amara back into her house. They laid her on a mat, surrounding her with warm blankets and lighting more lamps to brighten the room. The storm outside raged on, but inside there was a sense of calm and purpose. The labor was long, very arduous. Amara gritted her teeth, her hands gripping the edge of the mat. The village women encouraged her, her voice steady and soothing. "You are strong, Amara, you can do this." Hours passed, and finally, with a final agonizing push, the first baby emerged. "It's a boy," Mama Nkechi exclaimed, holding up the newborn. The women quickly cleaned and wrapped him in a soft cloth, but there was no time to rest. Another baby was on its way. Amara, exhausted but determined, summoned the last of her strength, and moments later, the second baby was born. "Another boy," one of the women cried out, a smile spreading across her face. Amara lay back. She was surprised that she was having twins. She never even thought about it for a moment. Her body spent, but her heart filled with overwhelming love and relief. The women placed her twin boys in her arms, their tiny faces peeking out from the blankets. "Chidi and Chike," she whispered, naming them on the spot. She looked into their innocent eyes, feeling an unbreakable bond with her sons. Despite the hardships, Amara loved her sons dearly. She marveled at their tiny fingers and toes, their soft cries, and the way they instinctively sought her warmth. In that moment, she vowed to raise them with strength and dignity, even if she had to do it alone. She would be their mother and father and protector and provider. The storm raged on outside. Amara felt a fierce determination rise within her. She would face whatever challenges that came her way for the sake of her beloved boys, Chike and Chidi. A few years went by, and Amara struggled to make ends meet. Each day was a test of endurance and willpower. She rose before the sun, her body accustomed to the early hours and the laborious tasks that awaited her. She took on any work she could find, from tilling the fields and harvesting crops to washing clothes for other families. There was no job too small or too hard for Amara. Her sons depended wholly on her and she was determined to provide for them. Chidi and Chike grew up knowing only the love and sacrifice of their mother. From a very young age, they learned the value of hard work and perseverance. They would accompany Amara to the farms, helping her in whatever they could. Though their hands were small, their efforts were earnest. Amara often looked at them with pride, her heart swelling with love. "Remember, my sons," she would say, "we may not have much, but we have each other, and that is enough." The boys, identical in appearances but different in temperament, became the light of Amara's life. Chidi, the elder by few minutes, was serious and studious. He excelled in school, always eager to learn and make his mother proud. Chike, on the other hand, was more carefree and adventurous. He loved exploring the village and its surroundings, his laughter a constant reminder of the joy he brought into their lives. Despite their differences, the twins shared a deep bond, understanding the sacrifices their mother made for them. They would often forego their own desires to lighten her burden, helping with chores and looking out for each other. The villagers often gossiped about Amara's misfortune. They whispered about how Dozie had abandoned her, leaving her to raise the boys alone. They pitied her, but some also judged her. "Oh, poor Amara," they would say, "what a shame, raising two boys all by herself, no man to help her." The words were sharp, but Amara refused to let them break her spirit. Amara held her head high, her pride evident in the way she carried herself. She ignored the whispers and focused on her sons, pouring all her love and energy into giving them a better life. She made sure they were well fed, clothed, and educated, often sacrificing her own needs to ensure their needs were met. The family lived in a small modest house at the edge of the village. It was simple but clean, filled with the warmth and love that Amara cultivated. Amara made sure that their home was humble and a place of comfort and security for herself and her children. A few years went by again and the boys grew into strong teenagers. Chidi excelled in his studies, always eager to learn more and make his mother proud. Chike, with his adventurous spirit, often found ways to earn a little extra money, helping neighbors with odd jobs and errands. Together, they lightened their mother's burden, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. One day, news spread through the village like wildfire. Dozie had returned from America. The air buzzed with excitement and curiosity as villagers exchanged snippets of information. "Did you hear? Dozie that went some years ago is finally back, and he is a very rich man now. They say he drives a car that shines like silver. I saw him, dressed in fine clothes, looking like a city gentleman." The whispers grew louder, the anticipation palpable. Dozier's arrival was nothing short of a spectacle. He drove into the village in a sleek black car that gleamed in the sunlight. His clothes were sharp and expensive, his demeanor confident and sophisticated. Children ran after his car, their eyes wide with wonder, while adults watched from their doorways, their expression a mix of admiration and envy. Dozier had become the epitome of success, a symbol of what living the village could achieve. When Amara saw him for the first time after all these years, her heart ached with a mix of anger and longing. Memories of their past flooded her mind, those moonlight nights under the mango tree, their whispered promises of future together, and the crushing moment when he turned his back on her. She had built her life without him, had raised their sons with strength and dignity, but seeing him now so changed and yet so familiar stirred a storm of emotions within her. She wanted to confront him, to demand why he had abandoned her and their children. She wanted to unleash the years of pain and struggle she had endured, to make him understand the depth of her suffering. But as she stood there, watching him from a distance, she stayed silent. Her pride would not let her beg for answers. She had moved on and had found a way to live without him, and she would not let his return unravel the life she had fought so hard to build. Amara turned her focus back to her sons, who were now teenagers with dreams of their own. Chidi, with his studious nature, aspired to go to the university to become a doctor someday. He spent hours poring over his books, his determination to succeed shining through in everything he did. Chike, ever adventurous, dreamed of becoming an engineer. He loved to tinker with machines. He often helped the villagers fix their broken radios and bicycles. The boys were everything to Amara, her pride, her joy, her happiness, her world and her life. She had raised them to be strong, kind and ambitious, despite the hardships they had faced. She watched them now, their faces alight with youthful enthusiasm, and felt a surge of protectiveness. She would not let Dozier's return disrupt their lives. As the days passed, Dozier's presence in the village became more pronounced. He visited the homes of old friends, distributed gifts, and spoke of his success abroad. His stories were filled with the glamour of the city life, the opportunities he had seized, and the wealth he had amassed. The villagers listened in awe, their respect for him growing with each tale he told. But Amara kept her distance. She avoided places where she knew Dozie would be, focusing instead on her work and her sons. She reminded herself that she had survived without him and had built a life of dignity and strength, and she would continue to do so, regardless of his presence in the village. Dozie decided to visit Amara. He stood nervously at her door, holding gifts wrapped in shining papers, his heart pounding with a mix of anxiety and hope. He had rehearsed what he would say countless times, but now, standing before the weathered door of Amara's house, his resolve began to waver. Taking a deep breath, Dozie knocked. The sound echoed in the stillness of the afternoon. Moments later, the door creaked open, revealing Amara. She looked the same, yet different, stronger, more resilient. Her eyes, however, held a depth of sorrow and strength that he hadn't noticed before. When Amara saw Dozie standing there, her breath caught in her throat. For a moment she was speechless, the sight of him bringing back a flood of memories. She quickly composed herself, her face becoming a mask of stoic calm. "I am sorry, Amara," Dozie began, his voice trembling with regret. "I was a coward. I left you when you needed me the most. I want to make amends." He extended the gifts towards her, his hands shaking slightly. Amara looked at the gifts, but did not reach for them. Her gaze returned to Dozier's face, and she saw the sincerity in his eyes, the remorse that seemed to weigh heavily on his shoulders. But years of pain and struggles could not be erased by just a few words and trinkets. "You cannot undo the past, Dozie," Amara replied, her voice steady and firm. "I have raised our sons alone. They are strong because of me." Dozie blinked, taken aback. "Our sons?" he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, I had twins," Amara said. The revelation hit Dozie like a punch to the gut. Twins? He had abandoned not one, but two children. He felt a wave of guilt and shame wash over him. "Twins," he echoed, his voice filled with disbelief. "Why didn't you tell me?" Amara's eyes flashed with anger. "Tell you? When? How?" "Dozie, how was I supposed to tell you? Before you turned your back on me, or after you turned your back on me? You made it clear that your future was more important than your responsibilities here." Dozie's heart sank. He had expected anger, but the reality of her words cut deeper than he had anticipated. "I was a fool," he admitted, his voice breaking. "I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now how wrong I was. I want to know them, Amara. I want to be a part of their lives now, if you would let me." Amara regarded him silently for a long moment. She had dreamt of this day, imagined what she would say if Doze ever returned. But now that he was here, her feelings were a tumultuous mix of anger and sorrow. Chidi and Chike are strong, good boys, not because of you, but in spite of you. Doze nodded, accepting her words. I know, he said quietly, and I will do whatever it takes to make things right. Dozie, determined to make amends, sought out to his sons Chidi and Chike. He asked around the village and soon found them playing football with their friends on a field at the edge of Umuaka village. The laughter and shouts of the boys filled the air as they chased the ball. Their youthful energy and calm nature was evident in every move. As Dozie approached, he felt a mix of nervousness and hope. His heart pounded in his chest, each step feeling heavier than the last. When Chidi spotted him, recognition flickered in his eyes. He had seen this man before, in the old photos that Amara had kept hidden away. The man who had abandoned them and their mother. Chidi stopped playing, signaling to his brother Chike, sensing the tension, came to stand beside him. His face was stern, his eyes hard with the years of unspoken questions and silent hurt. Dozier stood before them, his voice trembling as he spoke. I have come to seek your forgiveness, he said, his gaze shifting between the two young men. I know I have failed you and your mother, but I want to be part of your lives now. The weight of his words hung in the air. The other boys on the field had stopped playing and were watching the scene unfold with curiosity and confusion. Chidi and Chike exchanged a glance, their expression a mix of shock and skepticism. This was the moment they had secretly wondered about, but never truly expected it. Chidi and Chike listened to their father's play, their hearts heavy with pain of abandonment, the memories of growing up without a father, of seeing their mother struggle and sacrifice alone. It flashed through their minds, and they had built a life without him. They had grown strong and resilient because of his absence. Chidi, the more composed of the two, spoke first. We cannot forgive you easily, he said, his voice firm but measured. You can't just come back into our lives like that. We went through so much without you. Our mother was ridiculed. Some called us fatherless, all because you chose to deny us. Chike's eyes blazed with anger. Do you know what it was like to grow up without a father? He demanded. To see your mother work herself to the bone just to make sure we had food to eat and clothes to wear. You left us, and now you think you can just walk back in. We do not need you in our lives. We are fine without you. Doze felt the sting of their words, each one a reminder of his failures. I know I cannot undo the past, but I want to support you, he said. I want to try to make things right. I want to be there for you both in any way I can. Chidi's gaze softened slightly, but the hurt was still evident. It's not just about money or support, he said. It's about trust. It's about knowing that you are here to stay, that you are not going to leave again when things get tough. Doze nodded, understanding the depth of their pain. I promise you, I am here to stay, and I will do whatever it takes to earn your trust, to show you both that I am committed to being a father to you. Amara, watching them from a distance, felt a pang of sorrow. She had prepared herself for this day, knowing that their sons deserved to have a father in their life, even if she could never forgive Doze herself. The sight of them confronting Doze, standing tall and proud, filled her with bittersweet sense of pride and sadness. She knew this was a step they needed to take, a journey they had to embark on for their own sake. As Doze stood there, waiting for their responses, Chidi and Chike exchanged another glance. The road to forgiveness would be long and fraught with challenges, but perhaps, just perhaps, there was a glimmer of hope that they would find a way forward. As time passed, Doze worked hard to earn the trust of his sons. Every day was a test of his sincerity and commitment. He attended their football games, cheered them on from the sidelines, and spent evenings helping them with their studies. He shared stories of his time in America, not to boast, but to connect with them, to bridge the gap that years of absence had created. Financially, Dozie spared no effort. He ensured that Chidi and Chike had everything they needed for their education: new books, uniforms, and even tutor for extra lessons. Nothing was too much for his sons, but it was the emotional support that mattered the most. Dozie was there to listen, to offer advice, and to simply be present. Slowly, the walls of resentment began to crumble. Chidi, the ever more studious and serious one, appreciated Dozie's efforts in his academic pursuit. He began to see a different side of the man he had once despised. Chike, with the adventurous spirit, found common ground with Dozie through their shared love for fixing things. Amara watched from the sides, her feelings a complex blend of relief and lingering pain. She had never stopped loving Dozie, but the betrayal had cut deep. Despite her personal feelings, she recognized the positive impact his presence had on their son. She allowed Dozie access to Chidi and Chike, knowing it was the best thing for the both of them. The family, though scared by the past, started to heal gradually. They moved forward, united by love and strength. He sponsored their education and, true to his words, sent Chidi and Chike abroad for their university studies. The day they left for the airport was a poignant one, filled with tears of pride and joy. "Mama, I'll make you proud," Chidi promised, hugging Amara tightly. "Take care of each other," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "And remember, I am always here for you." Dozie stood a little apart, giving them their moment, but his heart swelled with gratitude. He had been given a second chance to be a father, and he intended to make the most of it. With Chike and Chidi settled in their new lives abroad, Dozie turned his attention to Amara. He knew he could never fully erase the pain he had caused, but he wanted to make her life easier. He moved Amara to the city, to a comfortable house where she would want for nothing. He opened a large grocery store for her, providing her with a sense of independence and achievement. Amara's store quickly became a success. She poured her energy into it, finding solace in the work. The villagers, who once pitied her, now looked at her with admiration. She had not only survived, but thrived, turning adversity into strength. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Dozie and Amara sat on the balcony of their home. The air was filled with scent of blooming flowers and gentle breeze rustling the leaves. "I never thought we'd be here," Dozie said quietly, breaking the comfortable silence. Amara looked at him, her eyes reflecting the years of struggle and resilience. "We are not the same people we were," she replied. "We have both changed." "Do you think there is a chance for us to build something new?" Dozie asked, his voice filled with hope and humility. Amara gazed at him softly. "Perhaps," she said. Dozie nodded, accepting her words. He leaned in and they shared a deep kiss. It was the beginning of another love story for them. The story of Dozie and Amara teaches an important lesson about responsibility, resilience and forgiveness, and the importance of family. Dozie's abandonment of Amara and their unborn children for personal gain shows the consequences of avoiding one's responsibilities. Amara's strength and determination in raising her twin sons alone highlights the power of resilience and the ability to overcome adversity. Dozier's return and sincere efforts to make amends demonstrates the importance of seeking forgiveness and working to rebuild trust. Ultimately, the story underscores that family bonds, though tested by betrayal and hardship, can heal and grow stronger through love, patience, and commitment. Amaka, overwhelmed by emotions, demanded custody of Fedora. The Uches were taken aback by her sudden assertiveness. "I want custody of my child," Amaka declared, her voice firm and determined. "Amaka, that's not possible. We are her parents." "But I carried her for 9 months, so you can't just keep me away from her." The Uches decided to refuse further visits from Amaka, fearing the situation was spiraling out of control. Amaka was a young woman from Umuahia, a town nested in the eastern part of Nigeria. Life had never been particularly easy for Amaka, but she had always managed to get by. Her father had passed away when she was just a child, leaving her mother Ngozi to raise her alone. Ngozi worked as a petty trader, selling vegetables in the local market, and though they lived modestly, they were very content. As Amaka grew older, she took on various jobs to support her mother. She worked as a seamstress, mending and creating clothes for their neighbors. She also helped her mother with the market store. Despite their hard work, money was always tight, and luxuries were far and few between. But Amaka never complained. She was determined to make her life better for herself and for her mother. Then disaster struck. Ngozi fell seriously ill, and after many weeks of persistent coughs and fevers, she was diagnosed with a severe heart condition that required immediate surgery. The news hit Amaka like a thunderbolt. The cost of the surgery was astronomical, far beyond what they could afford at the moment. Amaka sold everything of value they owned, but it was still not enough. She sought help from friends and family members, including her relative and extended relatives, but everyone had their own burdens to bear. Amaka spent sleepless nights worrying about her mother. She watched as Ngozi grew weaker, her once vibrant spirit dimming under the weight of her illness. It was during one of these sleepless nights, as she sat by her mother's bedside, that Amaka made a decision that would change her life forever. She had heard stories about surrogacy, mostly whispered conversations among women in the market or snippets from the radio. While couples who couldn't have children would pay substantial amounts of money to women willing to carry their babies to term. It seemed like an unimaginable choice, but Amaka was out of options. She knew she had to do whatever it took to save her mother's life. The next morning, Amaka made her way to a nearby cafe in town. Amaka searched for agencies that facilitated surrogacy and found several in Lagos. One in particularly stood out: the Hope Surrogacy Services. They promised generous compensation and excellent medical care. With a mix of fear and determination, Amaka sent an email expressing her interest. Days turned into weeks, and just as she was starting to lose hope, she received a reply. The agency was interested and asked her to come to Lagos for an interview. Amaka felt a mix of relief. Lagos was far away, a bustling metropolis that was worlds apart from the quiet life she knew in Umuahia, but she had no choice because she felt like that was her only option. She borrowed money from a neighbor for the journey and left her mother in the care of a trusted friend. As the bus rumbled towards Lagos, Amaka's mind raced with the thought of what lay ahead. She had never been to Lagos before and had heard stories of its chaos and opportunities. The tall buildings and busy streets were a stark contrast to the familiar landscape of her own hometown. Upon arriving in Lagos, Amaka was overwhelmed by the noise and crowds. She made her way to the address provided by the agency. Clutching her bag tightly, Hope Surrogacy Services was located in a modern office building. The receptionist greeted her warmly and led her to a room where she met Dr. Okoro, a kind-looking man in his 50s. "Welcome, Amaka," Dr. Okoro said, offering her a seat. "I understand you are interested in becoming a surrogate." "Yes, sir," Amaka replied, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I need the money, and I really want to do this. Aside needing the money, I also want to help women who cannot carry their own children." Dr. Okoro nodded sympathetically. We will take care of you, but you must understand this is a serious commitment. You will be carrying someone else's child, and there will be a legal agreement to ensure everyone's interests are protected. Amaka nodded. She understood the gravity of what she was about to do, but she was resolute. This is a serious commitment, and she knew she was ready for it. They went over the details of the contract, and Amaka learned that the couple she would be carrying the baby for were the Uches, a wealthy family who had struggled with infertility for years. After the interview, Amaka returned to Umuahia, her mind made up. She would do this for her mother's sake. She signed the necessary documents, underwent medical tests, and was soon matched with the Uches. It wasn't long before she was back in Lagos again, starting the medical procedures to prepare her body for pregnancy. The Uches were kind and grateful, though they maintained a professional distance. Mr. Uche was a successful businessman, while Mrs. Uche, known as Nneka, was a former banker who now devoted her time to charity work. They had everything money could buy, except the one thing they wanted the most, which was a child. As the embryo transfer procedure approached, Amaka felt a whirlwind of emotions. She was anxious about the process, hopeful for her mother's recovery, and curious about the life growing inside of her. She knew this journey would be difficult, but she was ready to face whatever challenges came her way. Amaka sat nervously in the sleek air-conditioned office of Hope Surrogacy Services. The modern surroundings, with their glass walls and minimalist furniture, made her feel out of place. She clutched her bag tightly, trying to steady her racing mind. Dr. Okoro, the kind-faced man who had conducted her interview, entered the room with a warm smile. He was accompanied by two lawyers, both dressed in sharp suits, carrying thick folders of documents. The atmosphere was serious, yet Dr. Okoro's demeanor was reassuring. "Good afternoon, Amaka," Dr. Okoro greeted her. "I hope you had a safe journey." "Yes, sir, thank you," Amaka replied, her voice betraying her nerves. "Please have a seat," he said, motioning to a comfortable chair at the long conference table. "We have so much to discuss." Amaka sat down, feeling the weight of the moment. The lawyers introduced themselves. They were the legal representatives of the Uches, the wealthy couple who had chosen Amaka to carry their child. "We understand that this is a significant commitment," Mr. Adeyemi began, "and we want to ensure that you fully understand the terms of the agreement. The contract is designed to protect all parties involved, particularly in such a delicate and important arrangement." Dr. Okoro took over, explaining the medical procedures Amaka would undergo, the embryo transfer, the prenatal care, and the support she would receive throughout the pregnancy. He assured her that she would be in the best hand, with regular care and medical checkups, and access to top medical facilities. "As for the financial aspect," Mr. Adeyemi continued, "you will receive a substantial fee, which will be paid in installments throughout the pregnancy. This is in addition to covering all medical expenses and providing a comfortable living allowance." Amaka listened intently, her mind focused on her mother's face, pale and frail in the hospital bed. This was her chance to save her mother, and she would not let it slip away. "There is, however, one important condition. There will be no contact between you and the Uches beyond the scheduled medical appointment. This is to ensure that the arrangement remains professional and to protect the privacies of both parties." Amaka nodded. She understood the need for boundaries, but a part of her felt uneasy. She had hoped to at least meet the couple whose child she would be carrying. Before she could dwell on this thought, the door opened and Nneka walked in, her presence commanding yet graceful. "Good afternoon, everyone," Nneka Uche greeted, her voice warm and confident. She was dressed elegantly, exuding an air of sophistication. "Mrs. Uche," Dr. Okoro said, standing, "we are just discussing the terms of the agreement." Nneka smiled and turned to Amaka. You must be Amaka. I've heard so much about you. Yes, ma, Amaka replied, standing up nervously. It's nice to meet you. Amaka's eyes softened as she looked at Nneka. I wanted to come and thank you personally for what you are doing for us. It is beyond words, Nneka said to her. Mr. Adeyemi cleared his throat, reminding them of the formalities. Mrs. Uche, as we discussed, it is important to maintain a professional distance, he said. I understand, Nneka said, not taking her eyes off Amaka, but I feel a connection to her that I can't explain. Amaka felt a strange mix of emotion. She was touched by Nneka's word, but also confused. She had experienced this to be a clinical, detached process, yet there was this woman expressing her gratitude and warmth for just her doing her job. Amaka, Nneka continued, I know the terms are strict, but I want you to know that we deeply appreciate your sacrifices. If you need anything, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Dr. Okoro stepped in, his tone gentle but firm. Mrs. Uche, while your intentions are noble, it is crucial to adhere to the agreed terms. This ensures clarity and avoids any potential complications. Nneka sighed but nodded. I understand, but I hope you know, Amaka, that you are not alone in this. Amaka nodded, feeling a sense of reassurance despite the formal settings. Thank you very much, ma, she said. The meeting continued with the lawyers going over the final details of the contract. Amaka signed the necessary documents, her hands shaking slightly as she did. This was it. There was no turning back now. And before she left, Nneka approached her once more. Take care of yourself. We are in this together. Do not forget. Nneka smiled. I will, ma. As she walked out of the office, the weight of her decision settled on her shoulders. She was stepping into an unknown future, driven by love and hope. She prayed silently that it would be worth it after all, for her mother's sake and for the life that she was about to nurture within her. Against all professional advice, Nneka visited Amaka frequently. At first, she would arrive quietly, often bringing small gifts or homemade meals. Her visits were very unexpected, but Amaka quickly began to look forward to them. In those early days, the interactions were tentative, marked by polite conversations and shared silences. But as time passed, a genuine friendship began to blossom. Nneka would often sit by her side, listening to Amaka as she spoke about her life in Umuahia, her mother's illness, and her dreams for her future. In return, Nneka shared stories about her own life, her career, her marriage to Chike Uche, and the painful journey of infertility that had led her to surrogacy. You know, I used to be a banker, Nneka said, her voice soft with nostalgia. I loved the work, but after years of trying to have a baby, I decided to step back and focus on what truly mattered to me. Amaka listened, her heart aching for Nneka's struggle. It must have been very difficult, she said quietly. It was, Nneka said. We tried everything, treatment, prayers, even adoption, but my husband insisted that he wanted the child to have his own blood or something to do with him. But nothing even worked, and then we found out about surrogacy. It was our last hope, and we decided to try it out. Despite the physical pain and emotional toll of the pregnancy, Amaka found comfort in their growing friendship. Nneka's visit became a source of strength and a reminder that she was not alone in the journey. As the days passed, Nneka confided more and more in Amaka about the countless doctor's visits and hope that would rise and fall with each failed attempt, and the toll it had taken on her relationship with her husband. Through it all, her desires to be a mother had never wavered. Sometimes I wonder if we were meant to be parents, Nneka said one day, her voice tinged with doubt. You will be, Amaka said firmly. I can feel it. Those people will bring you so much joy. Their conversations often drifted from serious topics to lighter ones. They laughed together, shared favorite recipes, and even debated the names they liked for the baby. Amaka would suggest some Igbo names that carried beautiful meanings, while Nneka listened eagerly, making notes in a small notebook. "What about Chimamanda?" Amaka suggested one evening. "It means my God will not fail. It is a strong name that is filled with hope." Nneka smiled. "I would write it down. It sounds good." Despite the joy and connection these visits brought, Amaka's pregnancy was not without its challenges. She suffered from severe sickness that often lasted all days, and the days when she could barely keep any food down, and nights when she lay awake, discomfort coursing through her body. Even as months passed, their bonds grew stronger. Nneka was there for every milestone. When Amaka felt her baby kick, during the routine ultrasound scans, and even as doctor's appointments, she helped Amaka decorate a small room where she stayed, adding little touches that made it feel more like home. Despite the severe warnings from Dr. Okoro and the lawyers, Nneka's visit became a cherished routine. She didn't mind, and the boundaries set by the agreement began to blur as their friendship deepened. They supported each other through everything, finding a sense of family in the most unexpected circumstances. As the pregnancy progressed, new challenges arose. Amaka was placed on bed rest after experiencing early contractions. The doctor explained that it was a precaution to prevent preterm labor. Confined to her small room, Amaka felt frustrated and helpless, but Nneka remained a steadfast support to her. Finally, the day arrived. Amaka was admitted to the hospital, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. Nneka and Chike were there, holding their hands and offering words of encouragement. "Amaka, you've got this," Chike said, his voice filled with gratitude. "We are so grateful for everything." The labor was long and painful, each contraction a wave of agony that left Amaka gasping for breath. Nneka stayed by her side, never letting go of her hand, whispering words of comfort and strength. "Breathe, Amaka, you're doing amazing. Just keep going." Hours passed and exhaustion set in. The doctors and nurses moved with practice efficiency. Their calm demeanor, a stark contrast to the turmoil Amaka felt. She pushed through the pain, driven by a fierce determination to bring the child into the world. Finally, with a last desperate effort, Amaka felt the baby slip free. The room filled with the sound of newborn's cry, a beautiful heartwarming sound that brought tears to her eye. "It's a girl, a beautiful one," the doctor announced. Amaka's heart swelled with unexpected surge of love and attachment. As she gazed at the baby, this little life she had carried and nurtured for 9 months was now a reality, a living, breathing person. She reached out, her fingers trembling, and she touched the baby's soft cheek. The baby was placed in Nneka's arms, and Amaka watched as Nneka cradled her daughter for the first time. It was a moment of profound joy and overwhelming emotion. But amidst the joy, Nneka felt a pang of sadness within her. This was the moment she had prepared for, yet nothing could have prepared her for the depth of feeling that came with seeing the baby she had carried. The bond she felt was undeniable, a connection that went beyond the terms of their agreement. As she lay back, exhausted and emotional, Amaka couldn't help but wondered what the future held. She had given life to this child, and in doing so had formed a bond that she thought would never be broken. With the formalities concluded, Amaka received her balance, a substantial sum that would cover her mother's surgery and provide for their future. She packed her few belongings and returned to Umuahia, her heart heavy but resolute. The journey home felt longer than usual, each mile a reminder of the life she was leaving behind. When she arrived at the house, she shared with her mother, Ngozi, what was waiting for her. Seated in a wicker chair on the balcony, her face lit up with a tired but genuine smile as she saw Amaka coming. "Welcome home, my daughter," Ngozi said, her voice frail but filled with love. "Thank you, Mama," Amaka replied, embracing her gently. "I have missed you so much." Over the next few weeks, Amaka threw herself into caring for her mother. The money she had earned allowed them to afford the surgery Ngozi desperately needed. The procedure was scheduled quickly, and Amaka stayed by her mother's side throughout the recovery process. She prepared nutritious meals, administered medication, and kept the house clean and comfortable for her mother. For some time, it seemed like things were finally improving. But despite their best efforts, Ngozi's health began to decline. The surgery had bought her time, but it wasn't enough. The illness, a relentless and unforgiving one, continued to sap her strength. Amaka watched helplessly as her mother grew weaker with each passing day. One night, as Ngozi lay in bed, her breathing shallowed and labored, she called to Amaka, "Amaka, my child." Amaka sat by her side holding her hand. "I'm here, Mama." Ngozi's eyes were filled with profound sadness and love. "You have been so brave, my child. You are so strong. Promise me you will take care of yourself after I'm gone." Tears welled up in Amaka's eyes. "Mama, don't talk like that. You will get better. We will get through this together." Ngozi smiled quickly. "Life is unpredictable, my daughter. But know that I am at peace because of you. You have made me proud." Amaka stayed by her mother's side throughout the night, holding her hand and whispering words of comfort. As dawn broke, Ngozi's breathing grew fainter. She passed away peacefully with Amaka by her side, her face serene and free of pain. Amaka was devastated. The loss of her mother was a blow that left her feeling hollow and alone. The house that had once been filled with warmth and laughter now felt cold and empty. She buried Ngozi in a small ceremony attended by a few close neighbors and friends. The community offered their condolences, but their words did so little to soothe the ache in Amaka's heart. In the weeks that followed, Amaka struggled to find sense of normalcy. She went through the motions of her daily life, but the joy and purpose she had once felt were all gone. She often found herself thinking about the baby girl she had given birth to, wondering what her life was like now. The memory of her daughter's tiny face and the delicate hand haunted her dreams. The days passed slowly, each one blending into the next. Amaka spent hours sitting in the small garden her mother had loved, her mind drifting back to the child she had given birth to. The connection was still undeniable, no matter how she tried. "I need to see her," Amaka said to herself one evening, her voice breaking with heavy silence. "I need to know that my child is okay." With a renewed sense of purpose, Amaka began to search for Nneka and the baby. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but the thought of reconnecting with them gave her the strength to move forward. Packing a small bag with essentials, she set off for Lagos, the bustling city where her journey had begun. The journey was long and arduous, but Amaka's determination never wavered. She arrived in Lagos with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The familiar sights and the sounds bringing back a flood of memories. She remembered the hospital, the small apartment where she had stayed, and the visit from Nneka that had filled her eyes with warmth and friendship. Amaka started her search by revisiting the hospital where she had given birth. She spoke to the nurses and staff, hoping to find some trace of the Uches. Most of them were unable to provide any information, bound by confidentiality and professional discretion. However, a nurse remembered Nneka and pointed Amaka in the direction of the neighborhood where the Uches lived. She begged Amaka not to reveal her identity, and Amaka tipped her, promising not to let anybody know she was the one who had given them the information. Grateful for the lead, Amaka navigated through the crowded streets of Lagos, her heart pounding with anticipation. She asked around discreetly, speaking to vendors, shopkeepers, and anyone who might have seen the Uches. Her persistence paid off when a street vendor recognized the description of Nneka and directed her to a gated community. As she approached the gate, Amaka felt a surge of nerves. She had no plan, no clear idea of what she wanted to do or say if she had found Nneka, but the thought of seeing the baby, of reconnecting with the life she had brought into the world, gave her the courage to press on. "Excuse me," she said to the security guard at the gate, her voice steady despite her raising heart. I'm looking for the Uche family. They live here, don't they? The guard's eyes, skeptical, but he nodded. Yes, they do. What's your business with them? Amaka hesitated, unsure of how to answer. I am just an old friend. I want to see them to congratulate them on the arrival of their baby. The guard made a call to confirm the story. He allowed her to enter, directing her to the Uche's residence. Amaka's heart beat faster with every step, a mix of hope and fear swirling within her. When Amaka got to the house, she confronted Nneka and her husband Chike, demanding to see the child. Her heart pounded as she stood in the living room, the weight of her emotions threatening to overwhelm her. Nneka, Chike, I need to see her. I can't explain it, but I have to be a part of her life, Amaka said, her voice trembling with intensity. The Uches were so shocked. Chike exchanged a worried glance with Nneka before turning back to Amaka. We understand how you feel, Amaka, but we have to think about what's best for Fedora, he said cautiously. Despite their initial hesitation, the Uches agreed to let Amaka visit. The first visit was tentative, filled with polite conversations and guided smile. But as the visit continued, something began to change. Amaka's love for the baby grew with each interaction, her bond with baby Fedora deepening in ways that she couldn't imagine. Amaka would sit with Fedora, playing with her, telling her stories, and watching her sleep. She fed her, bathed her, and do all the nice things to her. The little girl's giggles and bright eyes brought a joy to Amaka's heart that she hadn't felt in a long time. Each visit made it harder for her to leave, the attachment she felt tugging at her soul. Nneka and Chike found themselves caught into a whirlwind of emotions. Their gratitude for Amaka was immense, but so was their fear of losing their daughter, the one they had longed for. We have to be careful, Chike, Nneka said one evening, her voice filled with concern. Amaka is becoming more attached to Fedora every day. I am afraid of what might happen. Chike sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know, Nneka. I feel it too, but we can't just cut her out like that. The couple's conversation grew more frequent, their discussion often ending in frustration and worry. They wanted to do what was right for Fedora, but the path forward was unclear to them. As the days turned into weeks, the situation became more strained. Amaka couldn't help but feel the weight of the Uche's worry, their reluctance to fully embrace her presence in Fedora's life, a constant reminder of the fragile nature of their agreement. A few days later, things took a turn for the worse. Amaka, overwhelmed by emotions, demanded custody of Fedora. The Uches were taken aback by her sudden assertiveness. I want custody of my child, Amaka declared, her voice firm and determined. Chike's expression hardened. Amaka, that's not possible. We are her parents. But I carried her for 9 months, so you can't just keep me away from her. The Uches decided to refuse further visits from Amaka, fearing the situation was spiraling out of control. They contacted their lawyers to make legal actions to protect their family. Nneka and Chike sat down that night, their hearts heavy with the weight of their decisions. This is all my fault, Nneka said, her voice barely above a whisper. I got too close to her during the surrogacy journey. I should have listened to you all. Chike shook his head. No, Nneka, we couldn't have known it would come to this. We have to protect Fedora now. She's our daughter, the one we had longed for. The next time Amaka came to visit, she was met with a cold reception. Amaka, we've decided that it's best if you do not come around anymore, Chike said firmly. You signed an agreement. Kindly keep to it. Amaka's eyes widened in shock. What? You can't possibly do this. Amaka's anger boiled over. You can't keep me from my daughter. I will fight this to the end. The situation escalated quickly, and the Uches contacted their lawyer, who advised them to file a restraining order against Amaka. Tensions reached a peak when Amaka, in a moment of desperation, threatened to take Fedora away. The police were called, and Amaka was arrested, for threatening the peace of the Uche's family. She was led away in handcuffs, tears streaming down her face. "This isn't over," Amaka cried. "I will fight for her. I will fight for my baby. I will fight for my child." It was a rainy Tuesday when the revelation came. The sky was grey, mirroring the heavy tension that had settled over Lagos since Amaka's arrest. Amaka sat in a small apartment, staring at the rain running down the windows. Her heart ached from the loss of her mother and the ongoing struggle to be a part of Fedora's life. A knock on the door broke her thoughts. Amaka Owonsu, a tall man in suit, asked, holding a stack of papers. "Yes, that's me," Amaka replied, her voice tired. The man handed the papers. "These are the court documents. You are required to appear in court for the custody hearings. Your case have been reviewed and there are new developments." Amaka took the papers with shaky hands. "New development? What do you mean?" The man gave her a sympathetic look. "I can't discuss the details with you here, but you should review these documents carefully." Amaka closed the door and sat down at her table, the rain tapping rhythmically against the window. She opened the papers, her eyes scanning through the legal jargon until she saw the key details. The surrogacy agreement has been reviewed, revealing that Amaka's Wonsu eggs was used in the process, making her the biological mother of Fedora Uche. Amaka's heart raced. She could barely believe what she was reading. "So I am Fedora's biological mother," she whispered to herself. The realization hit her like a wave. All along, she had thought she was just a surrogate, but now it was clear that she was also Fedora's mother. The new revelation gave her hope, but it also stirred up a storm of emotions. Her phone rang, breaking the silence. It was her lawyer, Mr. Okeke. "Amaka, have you seen the court document I sent to you?" he asked. "Yes, I have," she replied, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Good. The situation has changed," Mr. Okeke said. "Because you are the biological mother, the court must now consider your claims to custody. However, this doesn't mean the process will be easy. The Uches would fight to keep Fedora, and it will be an intense legal battle." Amaka's hand trembled as she spoke. "So what do I do now?" "You need to prepare for the hearing. Gather evidence of your relationship with Fedora and be ready for a tough fight," Mr. Okeke advised. The weight of his words settled over Amaka. The prospect of a legal battle was daunting, but the chance to be in Fedora's life gave her a renewed sense of purpose. As Amaka prepared for court, the Uches were also grappling with the news. They had hoped the surrogacy agreement would protect them, but this new twist had thrown everything into chaos. Nneka paced back and forth in the living room, her hands wringing together. "Chike, I can't believe this is happening. How did we miss this detail?" Chike looked equally distressed. "We followed all the legal procedures. How could we not have known that Amaka's eggs were used?" Nneka sat down heavily on the sofa. "We have to fight for Fedora. Oh. We can't let her go." Chike sat beside her, trying to stay calm. "We will need to hire the strong lawyers, someone who can argue our case and keep Fedora with us by all means." They began searching for the best legal representation they could find. Their new lawyer, Mrs. Adebayo, was a formidable figure in the legal field. She was sharp and confident, her reputation for winning tough cases preceding her. At their first meeting with Mrs. Adebayo, Nneka and Chike were full of anxiety. "Mrs. Adebayo, what are our chances of keeping Fedora?" Nneka asked, her eyes pleading. "It will be a hard fight, but it is not impossible. We need to prove that you are the best parent for Fedora and that her well-being will be at risk if she is moved." Chike nodded. "We will focus on demonstrating the stability and love you provide for Fedora," Mrs. Adebayo added. "We would also argue that Amaka's claim is based on emotional ties rather than legal rights." With their legal strategy in place, the Uches prepared for the court hearings. The days leading up to the court date were filled with tension. They spent hours with Mrs. Adebayo, going over evidence and rehearsing their testimonies. Meanwhile, Amaka was also busy preparing. She collected photos of her visit with Fedora, wrote down her memories of the time she had spent together, and tried to gather witnesses who could attest to her love for the child. Every evening, she reviewed her notes and tried to stay focused on the goal of being a part of Fedora's life. The day of the court hearing finally arrived. Amaka stood outside the courthouse, her heart pounding in her chest. The rain had stopped, but the clouds remained, casting a grey light over the city. She took a deep breath and walked inside. In the courtroom, the atmosphere was very tense. The Uches and Amaka took their seats on the opposite sides, the divide between them stark and visible. Mrs. Adebayo and Mr. Okweke took sides beside their clients, ready to represent their cases. The judge entered and everyone stood up, and as they sat down, the judge looked at both parties and began the proceedings. The hearing was a grueling experience. Amaka took the stand first, her hands trembling as she spoke about her journey and her bond with baby Fedora. "I carried Fedora for 9 months," Amaka said, her voice breaking with emotions. "I felt her move inside of me. I loved her from the very moment I knew I was pregnant. She is my daughter, not just a child I carried for someone else." Her words were heartfelt, but they were met with legal arguments from Mrs. Adebayo. She countered by emphasizing that the surrogacy agreement was clear and that Amaka's emotional claims did not override the legal contract. Throughout the hearing, Nneka and Chike watched with a mix of hope and dread. They were determined to keep Fedora, but worried about the outcome of their trial. The back and forth arguments, the legal jargons, and the emotional testimonies took a toll on them. After several hours, the judge adjourned the court session, announcing that the case would continue on another day. The Uches left the courtroom, their face lined with worry. As Amaka walked out of the room, she felt a mixture of exhaustion and hope. She knew that the battle was far from over, but the revelation that she was Fedora's biological mother had given her a fighting chance. The day of the final court ruling was bright but chilly. The sun shone through the courtroom windows, casting long shadows on the floor. The courtroom was filled with people, both lawyers, reporters, and onlookers, all eager to the outcome of the case that had captivated many in Lagos. Amaka sat nervously in the gallery, her heart beating very fast. She wore a simple dress, her eyes focused on the front of the room, where the judge sat behind the large wooden bench. Mr. Okeke, her lawyer, sat beside her, his expression serious but encouraging. Nneka and Chike sat at the other side of the courtroom, their faces tense. The judge, a stern-faced man, looked over his notes and addressed the room. "We are here today to review the case of Amaka Wonsu versus the Uche family. The issue at hand is the custody of the child known as Fedora Uche. I have reviewed all evidences and listened to testimonies from both parties. I will now deliver my verdict." Amaka's hands trembled as she held onto the edge of her seat. Her lawyer gave her a reassuring nod. Chike squeezed Nneka's hands, his face masked with worry. The judge cleared his throat and began to speak. "It is clear from the evidence presented that Amaka Wonsu is indeed the biological mother of Fedora Uche, according to the report of the DNA test. The fact has also been established through medical records and expert testimony." Amaka's heart leaped at the acknowledgement of her biological connection to Fedora. Tears filled her eyes as she thought about the long journey that had led to this moment, but the judge's next words brought her back to reality. However, the surrogacy agreement between the parties was clear and legally binding. The judge continued. "The contract stipulates that the Uche's family is the legal guardian of the child, and this agreement is upheld by the court." Nneka and Chike exchanged relief glances. They had hoped for this outcome, but hearing it confirmed that there was still a weight off their shoulders. Amaka's face fell as she heard the judge's ruling. She tried to hold back her tears, knowing that this was not the outcome she had hoped for. Despite the ruling in favor of the Uches, the judge's next statement offered a glimmer of hope for Amaka. Although the legal agreement is binding, the court recognizes the deep emotional bond between Amaka Wonsu and Fedora Uche. Therefore, I am granting Amaka Wonsu a regular visitation right to maintain her relationship with Fedora. A murmur of surprise and relief rippled through the courtroom. Amaka's eyes widened in astonishment. She had not expected the judge to grant her this opportunity. Mr. Okeke leaned closer to Amaka, his voice low. "This is a significant concession. It is not full custody, but it is a start." Amaka nodded, her tears now a mixture of sadness and joy. "Thank you," she whispered. The judge continued, "The details of the visitation schedule will be worked out between the parties with the help of a mediator. Both sides must work together to establish a plan that is in the best interest of the child." With the ruling delivered, the judge left the courtroom. The tension in the room began to dissolve as people stood and began to leave. The outcome was not what Amaka had hoped for, but the chance to see Fedora was a small victory for her. After the court's decision, Amaka began to embrace her new reality. She had to accept that she wouldn't have full custody of Fedora, but she was grateful for the chance to be a part of her life through regular visits. Amaka packed her belongings and went back to Umuahia. Her heart, a mixture of sadness and hope. The familiar sight of her hometown brought her comfort, even though the memories of her mother's death still lingered. She settled into her small house, focusing on her store. One day, while on her way to her store, Amaka met a wealthy man named Chinedu Obi. He was kind, understanding, and they quickly grew close. Their relationship blossomed, and after a few months, Chinedu proposed to Amaka. They had a very beautiful wedding in Umuahia, surrounded by friends and family. Amaka felt a deep sense of joy and hope for the future as she started this new chapter in her life. Sometimes, her relationship with Chinedu helped her take her mind off Fedora for a while, and she was happy about it, knowing that visitation right was not legal custody. Not long after their marriage, Amaka became pregnant and gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Kelechi. Chinedu and Amaka were overjoyed with their new son. Every 6 months, Amaka traveled to Lagos to visit Fedora. She cherished this visit, bringing little gifts and spending time with her daughter. Fedora recognized her and they shared happy moments together, even though their time together was very limited. Meanwhile, Nneka and Chike decided to adopt twin babies, a boy and a girl. They named them Flourish and Francis. The adoption process went smoothly and they welcomed the twins into their home with love and excitement. As the years passed, Amaka continued to build her life in Umuahia, finding joy in her work, her family, and her visits with Fedora. She was content with the life she had created and looked forward to the future. Nneka and Chike enjoyed their growing family. With Fedora, Flourish, and Francis, they were a source of joy and laughter. They found happiness in the children and ensured to spend quality time with them. And so, life moved forward, each of them finding their own path to happiness and to long-time fulfillment. This story teaches us that love and sacrifice can lead to profound connections and growth. Amaka's choice to become a surrogate for the Uche family, despite her own struggles, shows that true love often involves difficult decisions. The story reveals that relationships are complex, and respecting boundaries is so crucial to maintaining peace and trust. Through Amaka's journey from grief to acceptance, we learn that new beginnings are possible after hardship. Ultimately, the story encourages us to embrace love, navigate relationships with care, and remain hopeful for the future. In her intoxicated state, Amaka found herself confessing, "I'm almost 30 and I have never ever done this. I've held on to something that no one else cared about. I'm a virgin, you know." Obina's eyes widened slightly, clearly taken aback by her admission. A virgin at 30? Years ago, on a warm evening in the quiet town where they grew up, 3 young girls, Amaka, Ngozi, and Chioma, sat together under the wide star-filled sky, sharing secrets and dreams. They had been friends since childhood, inseparable through school, family events, and countless sleepovers. That night, they decided to make a promise that would forever change the way they saw themselves and each other. The idea came from Amaka, who was always the most serious and spiritual of them all. She believed in true love and saving herself for one man who would be her husband. She told her friends, I think it would be special if we all made a promise to stay pure until marriage. Imagine how beautiful it would be to give ourselves to our husbands, knowing we waited. Her eyes shone with innocence and excitement. Ngozi and Chioma exchanged glances. They respected Amaka's belief, but they were also curious about love and relationships. Yet, in that moment, the idea of making a promise together, one that would bind them through life's ups and downs, felt comforting. They were young, innocent, and eager to hold on to their friendship no matter what. Ngozi laughed, nudging Chioma. Well, Chioma, looks like we are in this together. No turning back now. Chioma giggled, pretending to be reluctant, but clearly happy to join in. Fine, but if some Prince Charming sweeps me off my feet before then, I'll hold you both responsible. The three friends linked their pinky fingers, and under the stars, they made a pact of purity, a promise to remain virgins until marriage. They believed that this pact would be the ultimate sign of respect for themselves and each other, a commitment to love themselves first before giving that love to someone else. From that moment on, the pact became part of who they were, a secret they held close to their hearts and a bond that felt unbreakable. As the years passed and they grew into young women, they faced the same pressures and temptations as anyone else. The world around them began to change. They watched as friends from school got into relationships, some ending in heartbreak and others in marriage. They saw the faces of their classmates grow older, some with the glow of young love, others with the sadness of broken promises. The idea of love became more real, more complex, and at times more confusing. Amaka, with her soft-spoken wisdom, remained steadfast in the pact, convinced that her commitment was not only for herself but for her future husband. She believed that true love would find her and that waiting would make it all the more special. She often reassured Ngozi and Chioma, reminding them of the beauty of the promise they had made. It's not just about waiting, she would say. It's about knowing our worth, about loving ourselves before we let anyone else in. Ngozi, on the other hand, found herself struggling more than she had anticipated. She was vibrant and charming, with a smile that drew people in. Many men noticed her, and as she began dating casually, she felt the weight of the promise they had made. She loved the thrill of attention and the excitement of romance, but each time she felt herself getting close to someone, she would remember the pact and pull back, feeling both proud and burdened by her loyalty to her friends. Chioma, known for her boldness and playful spirit, found it even harder to stick to the pact. She was often caught between wanting to uphold the promise and her own curiosity about love and intimacy. Over the years, she developed her own unique charm and style, attracting admirers effortlessly, but each time she considered letting her guard down, she would hear Amaka's voice in her mind, reminding her of the purity and the beauty they had committed to. As they reached their late 20s, the pressures mounted. Their friends were getting married, starting families, and building their lives, while three of them remained single, bound by a promise they had made in their youth while waiting for the Mr. Perfect. The world around them had changed, but they clung to the vow even as it felt heavier with each passing year. One evening, the three friends gathered in Amaka's living room. The topic of relationships and marriage came up. As it often did, Ngozi sighed, looking at her friends. Do you ever wonder if we are being too hard on ourselves? She asked. Sometimes I feel like we are the only ones left, holding on to this archaic mentality. Chioma laughed, her tone light but her eyes thoughtful. Speak for yourself, Ngozi. I still believe there is a Prince Charming out there who will appreciate that I waited. Amaka smiled, feeling a mix of pride and worry for her friends. It's not about anyone else appreciating it. It's about us valuing ourselves. If we start doubting now, everything we've stood for will mean nothing. Despite her words, even Amaka couldn't deny the loneliness that sometimes crept in, the longing to find intimacy, to find someone who would understand and love her deeply. She looked at Ngozi and Chioma, wondering if they too secretly felt the same ache. But none of them said it aloud, choosing instead to stay strong for each other, holding on to the promise that had once felt like a blessing but was now beginning to feel like a burden. As they left that night, each of them felt the weight of their unspoken doubt. The purity pact had become a silent pressure, a reminder of who they used to be and who they thought they still wanted to be. As time went on, the purity pact that had once been a source of strength and unity for the three friends began to fade quietly into the background. Each woman faced her own struggles and desires, yet no one dared to speak of them aloud. For Ngozi, it began subtly. Her relationship with Emeka had grown serious, and with each passing day, she felt her love for him deepen. Emeka was a kind, thoughtful man, and he cherished her in a way that made her feel truly special. Initially, Ngozi restricted any temptation to go beyond the boundaries set by their youthful promise. But Emeka's patience, his understanding, and his genuine love for her began to make the pact feel like an unnecessary weight. One evening, after a quiet dinner date, Emeka held her hand gently and said, Ngozi, I want to be with you completely. I don't want there to be anything between us, but I also respect you, and I will wait as long as you need me to. His words were soft, and his gaze filled with sincerity. Ngozi felt her heart race. She loved Emeka deeply, and in that moment, the pact felt like a distant memory, a choice she had made as a young girl who knew nothing about the kind of love she now shared with him. She looked into his eyes and after a long pause, whispered, I love you too, Emeka. From that moment, Ngozi allowed herself to break free from the promise. It wasn't a decision she made lightly, and a part of her felt a twinge of guilt, but she convinced herself that what she had with Emeka was different. It was true love. She resolved to keep her choice a secret, fearing that Amaka would never understand. Amaka had always been the most devoted to the pact, the one who held them all together in their commitment. Ngozi worried that admitting her change of heart would not only hurt her friends, but might even break their bond. Meanwhile, Chioma found herself in a similar predicament. Known for her adventurous spirit, she had always been the one to push boundaries, though she had honored the pact throughout her 20s. But when she met Jude, a close friend of Emeka's, everything changed. Jude was charming and exciting, with an energy that Chioma found hard to resist. Their friendship quickly blossomed into something more, and Chioma found herself drawn to him in a way she hadn't even anticipated. One evening, after a particularly lively outing, Jude leaned in close and kissed Chioma. Chioma hesitated for a moment, feeling the weight of the promise she had made. But as her heart raced with excitement, she let herself give in, allowing the passion between them to flourish. She told herself it was just a moment of freedom, that it didn't mean she was abandoning the pact entirely. But one moment turned into another, and soon she and Jude had crossed the line that she had vowed never to cross. Like Ngozi, Chima kept her secrets buried deep. She couldn't imagine the disappointment on Amaka's face if she ever found out. Amaka was the last of them still fully committed, and Chima respected her friend's dedication. She didn't want to be the one to break Amaka's heart by revealing that she too had stepped away from their shared vow. Whenever the three friends gathered, Ngozi and Chima would avoid the subject of their pact, silently agreeing not to bring it up. They maintained their usual laughter, shared their stories about work, and chatted about their lives as if everything was the same. But underneath the surface, the secret simmered, creating a quiet tension that neither dared to address. Amaka was known for her resilience and deep-rooted beliefs. She took the purity pact so seriously, not just as a promise to her friends, but as a testament to her own values. Whenever her family asked her why she was still single, she would smile and say, "I'm waiting for the right one who would wait with me until we are married." Her siblings would sometimes tease her, calling her the saint, but Amaka didn't mind. She wore their teasing as a badge of honor. To her, it meant she was sticking to what she believed in, no matter how old-fashioned it seemed to everyone else. As the years went by, Amaka noticed small changes in her friends, especially as they started dating more seriously. Occasionally, Chioma and Ngozi would make vague comments or brush off the topic whenever the pact was mentioned, but Amaka, confident in their friendship, dismissed these as normal shifts in conversations. She trusted them deeply, never imagining that they could have strayed from their promises. With her 30th birthday approaching, Amaka was the last of her friends who hadn't been in a serious relationship, but she didn't feel pressured. She was content, grounded in her belief and her values, and unbothered by the passing years. She firmly believed her friends felt the same way and was even proud of them for holding on to the commitment they had all made together. As Ngozi's wedding day neared, Amaka took it upon herself to organize a memorable bachelorette party. She wanted to make the night special, a celebration of not only Ngozi's upcoming wedding, but also the enduring friendship they had shared over the years. She rented a cozy lounge and decorated it with flowers, candles and soft lights, creating an intimate and celebratory atmosphere. Friends from around Ngozi's life gathered at the party, including Emeka's friends. Jude was there too, much to Chioma's excitement and nervousness. The evening was filled with laughter, dancing, and toasts to the bride-to-be. Everyone was relaxed, caught up in the joy of the moment. As the night went on, Amaka felt an overwhelming sense of pride in her friendship with Ngozi and Chioma. She picked up her glass, tapped it with a spoon, and called everyone's attention. She had prepared a toast that she had hoped would capture the essence of their friendship. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice warm and filled with emotion. "Tonight we are here to celebrate Ngozi, who is about to start a new chapter in her life. But there is something else I want to celebrate." She looked around, smiling at Ngozi and Chioma, who were both seated nearby. "Years ago, the three of us made a purity pact. We promised to stay true to ourselves and wait until marriage. It was our way of supporting each other and honoring what we believed in." Amaka's words filled the room, and a hush settled over the guests. Emeka, sitting across the room, looked surprised. He glanced at Ngozi with a confused expression, as if trying to process what Amaka had just said. Breaking the silence, he cleared his throat and blurted out, "Wait, what's purity pact?" Ngozi's face went pale as she stammered, "Emeka, it was a long time ago. I didn't think it mattered now." Emeka's brows furrowed as he leaned forward, his tone laced with shock and disbelief. "Ngozi, we've been together for 2 years now. You've never mentioned any purity pact." Jude, sensing the tension in the room, looking at Chioma with a nervous chuckle, added to the surprise, "Well, if we are all confessing here, Chioma never told me about any pact either." Chioma's face flushed and she avoided Amaka's gaze, her cheeks growing redder by the second. The room fell into an awkward silence as Amaka's eyes moved between her friends, her face a mix of confusion and betrayal. She had always believed they were in this together, that they had all kept the promise they made to each other. You both broke the pact." Amaka's voice was barely a whisper, her heart breaking as she looked at the friends she had trusted so completely. You made me believe we were all in this together, that we had something special. Ngozi and Chioma looked down, their expressions filled with guilt and shame. Neither of them could meet her eyes, both painfully aware of the betrayal she felt. Without another word, Amaka set down her glass, her face clouded with hurt. Unable to stay any longer, she turned and walked out of the party, leaving behind her friends and a room of guests and stunned silence. The betrayal from her friends cut so deep, it left Amaka feeling like the last of her kind in a world that had moved on without her. As she sat alone in her apartment, the silence was deafening. Her mind kept replaying the scene at the bachelorette, the shock on Emeka's face, the uneasy confession from Jude, and the shame-filled glances from Ngozi and Chioma. She felt like a fool, as if her years of holding on to their promise had meant nothing. Her 30th birthday was just around the corner, a milestone that she had always imagined celebrating with pride and joy. Yet now, the thought of her birthday only brought bitterness. She had spent all these years holding on to a promise that had been broken behind her back. She couldn't shake the feeling of loneliness and betrayal. For the first time, she questioned her beliefs and wondered if she had wasted her youth on a pact that she only took seriously. In a moment of impulsive defiance, Amaka decided she needed to get out of her apartment. She dressed up in a sleek fitted dress that hugged her curves and accentuated her natural beauty. She looked at herself in the mirror, taking in the woman she had become, strong, independent, but with walls that had been built on trust and promises now crumbling. Without informing anyone, she left her apartment and headed to a club on the other side of town. It was a lively place with pulsing music, flashing lights, and a crowd of people lost in their own worlds. Amaka found herself blending into the scene, allowing the loud music and chaotic atmosphere to drown out her thoughts. She ordered a drink, then another, letting the alcohol numb the sharp ache in her heart. As she moved onto the dance floor, swaying to the rhythm, she let go of her worries, her values, and everything she held so tightly. She wanted to forget, even if just for a night. And in that moment, she was no longer Amaka the last virgin, but just a woman looking for freedom from her past. As she danced, she felt someone's eyes on her. She turned to find a tall, strikingly handsome man watching her with a warm smile. His name was Obinna, and there was something charming about him that drew her in. He moved closer and they began to talk over loud music, laughing as they shouted to hear each other. His words were smooth, his eyes attentive, and for the first time in a long time, Amaka felt seen in a way that had nothing to do with her past or her pact. They talked for hours, moving from the dance floor to a quieter corner of the club. She told him about her job, her love for music, and her dreams. Obinna listened intently, never pressing her for details, and she found herself relaxing more than she had in years. With each passing moment, her guard slipped a little more. She didn't mention the pact, her friends, or the betrayal she had just experienced. Tonight, she was just Amaka, a woman celebrating life. By the end of the night, she felt bold, almost daring. Her head was buzzing, both from the alcohol and the feeling of liberation. When Obinna offered to take her back to his place, she didn't hesitate. She felt an overwhelming urge to break free from the chains of the past, to leave behind the Amaka that she had been holding on to for so long. As they reached Obinna's apartment, he noticed a flicker of hesitation in her eyes. She seemed torn. He gently led her to the couch, offering her a glass of water to sober up a bit. They continued talking, laughing, and sharing pieces of themselves. In her intoxicated state, Amaka found herself confessing, "I'm almost 30, and I have never ever done this. I've held on to something that no one else cared about. I'm a virgin, you know. I kept waiting, thinking it mattered, but tonight I really don't care anymore. Her words hung in the air, a raw confession that had even surprised herself. She looked down, feeling vulnerable and exposed, unsure of how Obina would react. Obina's eyes widened slightly, clearly taken aback by her admission. A virgin at 30, he repeated, his tone a mixture of surprise and respect. Amaka nodded, her fingers fiddling nervously with the edge of her dress. My friends and I, we made a pact. We were going to wait until marriage, but it didn't mean anything to them in the end. I'm the only one who kept it. She let out a bitter laugh. All this time, I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was just lonely and alone. Obina moved closer, his gaze gentle and steady. Amaka, just because they didn't keep their promise doesn't mean your choice was foolish. If it was something important to you, then it was worth something. She looked up at him, her eyes filling with unshed tears. I've been holding on to this idea of purity, but tonight, I just feel foolish. Maybe it was all for nothing. Obina reached out, placing his hands over hers in a reassuring gesture. You shouldn't do this just because you feel betrayed. Don't let someone else's choice define yours. If you want to let go of the past, that's fine, but make sure it's for you and not because you feel you have to prove something. His words pierced through her drunken haze, grounding her. For a moment, the weight of her hurt and confusion lifted, replaced by a calm she hadn't felt in a long time. Amaka took a deep breath, feeling a strange sense of relief mixed with sadness. She wasn't sure what she had expected from the night, but this wasn't it, and yet somehow it felt right. They continued talking, their conversation drifting from her confession to their lives and struggles. Obina shared his own experiences with societal expectations, the weight of being constantly judged by what others thought he should be. His openness put her at ease, and she found herself talking freely without the fear of judgment she often felt around others. As the night grew darker, Amaka's eyelids grew heavy, and she found herself nodding off on the couch. She felt Obina's genuine touch on her shoulder as he draped a blanket over her. Get some rest, he whispered softly. I'll be here in the morning. When Amaka's eyes fluttered open the next morning, she was surprised to find herself lying on a comfortable couch, a blanket draped over her. Her head ached slightly from the night before, but as she looked around, memories of her evening with Obina came rushing back. She sat up, noticing she was fully dressed, and a wave of relief washed over her. Just then, Obina entered, carrying a cup of tea. He gave her a warm smile as he approached. Good morning, he greeted softly, handing her the tea. Thought you might need this. Amaka blushed, feeling a mix of embarrassment and gratitude. She took the cup, her hands wrapping around its warmth. Thank you for everything, for listening, for being kind, and for not. Obina chuckled gently. You were vulnerable, Amaka. I didn't think it would be right. Sometimes it's better to wait until things feel true. His sincerity struck her, and she looked at him with a newfound respect. As he drove her home, they spoke quietly, the morning sun casting a gentle glow over them. Amaka couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. For so long, she had felt weighed down by her pact, and the sense of betrayal that had led her to question everything. But now, sitting beside Obina, she felt a budding hope, a sense that maybe there were people in the world who saw her for who she truly was. When they arrived at her house, Obina turned to her, his gaze steady. Take care of yourself, Amaka, and don't let anyone make you doubt your worth, he said with a gentle smile. As she watched him drive away, she realized that his words and actions had left a deep impression on her heart. The days that followed were filled with quiet moments of introspection for Amaka. She found herself thinking about Obina often, his kindness, his understanding, and the way he had treated her with respect. They kept in touch, exchanging messages and phone calls that slowly turned into casual meets-up. They met for coffee on rainy afternoon, shared a quiet dinner at a small restaurant, and took walks together, talking about life, dreams, and all the little things that made them who they were. Their connection deepened with each encounter. Amaka felt herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't before, telling him stories of her childhood, her fears, and her dreams of love. With Obinna, she found a safe space to be herself again, free from judgment and expectation. He, in turn, shared his own struggles, his own disappointments, and his own dreams, and Amaka felt herself drawn to his quiet strength. One evening, as they sat on the park bench, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Obinna turned to her and asked, "You know, Amaka, I admire your strength, the way you hold on to your values. It's rare and it's beautiful." Amaka felt a warmth in her chest at his words. She looked down easily, smiling shyly. "It hasn't been easy, but meeting you has shown me that maybe I wasn't wrong to hold on to those beliefs." Meanwhile, her relationship with Ngozi and Chioma were shifting. Both of her friends had reached out, apologizing for breaking their pact without telling her. They explained their struggles and the reason behind their decisions, seeking to mend the bonds they had shared. Although Amaka listened and accepted their apologies, she felt something change within her. She realized that she could forgive them. The trust they had once shared was fractured. The Purity Pact had been their way of staying close, holding on to something they all believed in. But now, Amaka saw that friendships didn't need pact to survive. They needed honesty and understanding. She could forgive her friends, but she had also grown in ways that made her say things differently. Obinna became her anchor through these changes, offering her advice, humor, and warmth when she needed it most. Their time together felt effortless, and before long, Amaka realized that her heart had begun to open up to him in ways that she hadn't expected. One night, as they shared a quiet dinner at her place, Amaka felt a surge of gratitude. "Thank you, Obinna," she said, her voice soft, "for being here, for everything." Obinna took her hand, his eyes warm and steady. "Amaka, being with you, it's been one of the best things that has happened to me. You are an incredible woman." Their connection blossomed, grounded in mutual respect, and a love that grew quietly, day by day. Weeks went by, and with each passing day, Amaka's love for Obinna deepened. On the evening of her birthday, Obinna invited her out for a special dinner. The restaurant was cozy, with soft music playing in the background and candlelight casting a warm glow over the table. Amaka couldn't help but feel a little nervous, sensing that tonight might be different. After they finished their meal, Obinna took her hand, his gaze intense, yet filled with warmth. "Amaka," he began, "meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me. You've shown me what it means to love deeply, to care without limits. You are the strongest, most beautiful woman I know, and being with you has changed my life in ways I can't describe." Amaka felt her heart pounding as she continued, "I love you, Amaka. I want to be with you, not just for now, but for always. I would be honored if you would let me be a part of your life." Tears filled Amaka's eyes as she looked into his, feeling a joy she had never known. She squeezed his hand, her voice trembling with emotion. "Obinna, I love you too. I never thought I could feel this complete, this understood, this loved. With you, I feel like I can finally be myself." In that moment, they both knew their love was real, built on respect, trust, and understanding. It wasn't about proving anything to anyone or living up to expectations. It was a love born out of seeing each other's true selves and accepting one another, flaws and all. As Amaka's relationship with Obinna blossomed, she felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. But there was still one thing left to mend: her friendship with Ngozi and Chioma. She realized that while they had hurt her, Their friendship was a significant part of her life, and she wanted to find more closure. One Sunday afternoon, Amaka invited Ngozi and Chioma over for tea. The atmosphere was initially tense, each of them unsure of how to bridge the distance that had grown between them. After a few moments of silence, Amaka took a deep breath and spoke up. "I've missed the both of you," she said. "I know things got complicated between us, and I won't lie, it hurts to find out that our pact didn't mean the same to all of us. But I've also learned that friendship is about more than promises. It's about being there for each other even when we make mistakes." Chioma and Ngozi exchanged a look, their faces filled with regret but relief. "Amaka, we are sorry," Ngozi said, her voice thick with emotions. "We didn't mean to hurt you. We should have been honest with you instead of pretending we were still committed." Chioma nodded, adding, "We were wrong, Amaka. We know that now. We let our own choices come between us, and we are very sorry for that." With tears in Amaka's eyes, Amaka hugged them, and for the first time in a long while, they laughed together, sharing stories and reliving memories of their younger years. The friendship wasn't exactly the same, but they had found a new, more honest bond. Amaka's journey had taught her that her worth wasn't defined by a pact or society's standards. She was free to make her own choices, to define love and friendship on her own terms. With Obinna by her side, she knew she had found a love rooted in respect and trust, a love that allowed her to be her true self. As they sipped their tea, Amaka felt an overwhelming sense of contentment. She looked around the room, at her friends, and the thought of Obinna, realizing that she had finally found her version of happiness. She had made peace with her past and embraced the future filled with love, friendship, and self-acceptance. Amaka and Obinna's wedding was a dream come true. The ceremony was held in a beautiful garden, surrounded by friends and family, and a sea of flowers that filled the air with soft fragrance. Amaka looked radiant in her gown as she walked down the aisle. Her heart swelled with joy and gratitude. Standing by her side as bridesmaids were Ngozi and Chioma, their friendships rekindled and their bonds stronger than ever. As she exchanged vows with Obinna, Amaka felt a profound sense of peace. This was what she had waited for, what she had hoped for in her moments of doubt. She held Obinna's hands, her voice trembling as she said her vows, promising to love him with all her heart for all her days. Obinna's gaze was filled with love and devotion, and when he sipped the ring into her finger, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. The reception was so lively, filled with laughter, dancing, and heartfelt speeches. As Amaka looked around, she saw the faces of those she loved most, all gathered to celebrate this new chapter in her life. Her heart was overflowed with happiness, and the joy of the day left her feeling so blessed. After the celebration, she and Obinna left for their honeymoon in a quiet getaway on a beautiful island. It was a time for just the two of them, away from the world, where they could start their life together in privacy and peace. That first night, after years of waiting, Amaka finally allowed herself to let go. She was no longer burdened by the weight of her past or the broken promises. In Obinna's arms, she felt safe, cherished and loved. Their first night together was tender and beautiful, and she treasured every moment. It was an experience filled with love, patience, and warmth, something she would hold dear to her heart forever. Their honeymoon was filled with laughter, late-night conversations, and the sweet intimacy that only true love could bring. For Amaka, it felt like a beautiful beginning, a fresh start with a man who had proven his love time and time again. As they returned home, Amaka felt ready to embrace this new life. She was no longer bound by expectations of others. She had found her place in the world, standing beside a man who loved her deeply, with friends who had stood by her through thick and thin. The story of Amaka teaches that true love and happiness come when we stay true to ourselves, even when life is filled with challenges and disappointments. It shows that resilience, patience, and self worth are essential as they lead us to the relationships and happiness we truly deserve. Friendships, while tested by personal choices and misunderstandings, can be healed with honesty and forgiveness. Amaka's journey reminds us that our worth isn't defined by societal expectations or past mistakes, but by the love, respect, and strength we cultivate within ourselves. In the end, genuine love and happiness are found when we embrace our values and remain open to love that respects and cherishes us for who we truly are. Thank you so much for watching this fantastic story on African Stories by Tiana. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing stories. See you next time.